mostly sunny and a high of 12. At this hour in Moose Jaw, it's mostly cloudy. Winds from the southwest at 26, gusting to 35, and it's 16. Regina is also mostly cloudy. Winds from the southwest at 27, and it's 15. For more local news that matters to you, subscribe to the daily newsletter at sasktoday.ca.
No matter what is going on in your life, nothing in this world is more satisfying than giving to those in need. United Way is improving lives locally by helping kids be all they can be, moving people from poverty to possibility, and building strong and healthy communities. They're asking you to show your local love, donate, and support early literacy.
Visit unitedwayregina.ca to show you care. Donate and change the lives of people in need. Change begins with education.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents the all-new Sportscage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Sask Lotteries, bringing communities together. Sask Lottery products fund over 12,000 sports, culture, and recreation groups across Saskatchewan. Be a part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936. 6262. The all-new Sportscage. Streaming at sportscage.com and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Well, welcome to another edition of Sportscage. This is Don Hewitt, along with the play-by-play voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Dave Thomas. Our technical directors today, as usual, Colson Schultz and Curtis Gammon. We've got a great show. Dave was, of course, down at Mosaic as the Riders were back at the practice field, so we're going to go right to Coach Mace in just a minute or two in conversation with Dave. Dante de the Pats is on the show today, as well as regulars Arash Madani and Glenn Suter. We'll have Jason Matity talk about fishing. We're going to have some great video for those of you who are streaming this show we'll watch Jason Matity catch very large fish. Curtis got that video, and that's really good. Keith Willoughby will be going through some very, I would say, encouraging rider analytics at 5:30. And, it's looking like the Riders, according to the analytics, have a good chance of hosting, not just making the playoffs, folks, but hosting a playoff game. If the analytics are correct, and the analytics have been pretty darn accurate so far this year, Dave.
Admit that AI is going to replace us all.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're okay. I can't see AI doing the play-by-play, but I don't know. You never know. Anyway, we're right to Dave in conversation with Rough Rider head coach Corey Mace. Of course, Dave, he was asking the head coach about an injury update on receiver Sean Bain Jr. and a running back Raquel Armstead.
Coach, day one routine is to find out about the injuries, and it was a tough physical battle on the weekend against Ottawa. Raquel Armstead didn't finish the football game. Any update on your running back?
He's dealing with I think that first game and a match with the second one, he took a couple good shots in there. So we're going to slow play it here over the week and to make a decision. As you guys know, for me, you got to practice, for the most part to get in there. So we'll see. But then also in the same breath, guys like obviously Thomas stepped up. Frankie's played a lot of games for us. So Roderick is coming around big time as well. So we got options.
Scary incident with the receiver Sean Bain Jr. Any update on him?
It's not looking the greatest, you know what I mean? But it's just at the point of I think we might have dodged a few bullets. I'm hoping it's not the case that everybody, would think it is. But imminent return, no.
Now, on the other side, there was some good news. A.J. Ouellette was back on the field.
Yeah, no, he actually did Indy, took a couple snaps. We'll see, I want to be smart with A.J. Obviously when we pull the pin on that, we know exactly how he's going to play. So he's kind of one of those guys, not necessarily have to protect him from himself, but, certainly as the weather turns a little bit, he's a guy that you're going to want out there. So we'll be smart with it, but it's great to see him back out there.
Joining him, receiver Mitchell Picton.
Now, Picton was out there today again, just kind of everybody getting these guys, going to kind of go through the motions again, getting more football-specific stuff at speed, and then kind of just gauge how they feel from there. If it's something that he feels like he can get going right now, then it's an option for us. If it's another week, it's another week, but it's just good to get these guys out.
Back to that game on Saturday, and of course there was the incident with Deontay Williams and Khalil Pimpleton at the end of the game, which kind of left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. What did you do to address the situation?
Yeah, no, we addressed it, as a team. All those guys, they all, they play the same sport, and it's physical enough as is. Obviously, no one's ever intending to hurt anybody. That's not within the rules of the game. And certainly, in Tay's situation with that tackle, I believe he could have gone about it a different way. But the melee and all that stuff that happened after, that's not what we talk about. That's exactly everything we're trying to get away from. So another opportunity for us to learn in a situation like that. Again, just learning to win with a little bit more class.
Williams was with the twos today, so does that mean that you won't play him this weekend?
Yeah, no, it's just, it's just a little bit of accountability for everybody, but, we also have to play, smart with the situation as well. I'm not sure if the league's going to reach out to him, so, it's during the practice week, as a staff, we got to make sure that we prepare properly for any scenario that's given to us. So, I spoke with Tay even, the day after the game as well. If he had to go back and do everything differently, I'm sure he would. So,
finally, it's a day in Rider Nation, 1 year since the passing of the legendary George Reed. A beautiful tribute put up to him on the scoreboard here and on the sidewalls as you came in. A lot of the players obviously weren't even born when he was tearing up the league, let alone representing the team throughout the province and the country. What do you tell the group about George Reed?
Yeah, I saw, to be honest with you, I wasn't aware of the date until we walked out on the field and I saw it on there. So I haven't had a chance to talk with the team about it, but, obviously what he meant to this team and this community and really the league. Over the last or during this season, I've had 2 or 3 sit-downs with his wife. Just the two of us just talking, sharing stories. So I love that his family's still here in the community. I know the community loves him. Certainly, the stories that I hear from his family and other people who had the opportunity to be around George, man, I wish I got here maybe a little bit earlier, right? So, but definitely anytime you want to talk about a person that meant so much to the province, I got all the time in the world for that.
And of course, if you missed it, Deontay Williams he tackled Khalil Pimpleton, all 165 pounds of him, and Pimpleton ended up on his head, or landing right on his head. So Williams had a hearing with the CFL today, and mere minutes ago, Dave Thomas caught up with Deontay Williams.
Deontay Williams, I know you just had a conversation with the Canadian Football League regarding the hit late on Khalil Pimpleton in Saturday's game against the Ottawa Redblacks. Are you expecting a decision anytime soon?
We won't find the results probably tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.
Are you expecting anything in terms of supplemental discipline?
I don't know. I don't know how the rules work. Mostly I just had to explain and tell them what my situation was on that play and stuff like that.
What did you tell them about the play?
First off, I told them that I regret my decision, and I apologized to Pimpleton. Mm-hmm. We talked in the morning. We emailed each other, started talking and stuff like that. Told him that I'm never that guy that tried to get in the way of you feeding your family, so stuff like that. And then explaining the situation how it happened, and I was saying your head was down and you was low, and I was trying to get under you, but I couldn't, so it ended up looking bad of me slamming you to the ground, and you end up falling on your neck, stuff like that.
Do you expect then to play this week?
I hope so.
Okay. They haven't told you otherwise?
I hope so. It's my birthday week.
Definitely this has been a conversation on social media. What have your teammates been like in the dressing room?
Yeah, they talked to me about this. My teammates, they have my back. Yeah. They have my back. You seen it out there on the field. They had my back. and I'm glad I got I'm glad I got a team like I do now that have my back in certain situations like this, if I was right or wrong. So
this seems very out of character for you. Have you ever been suspended?
I had a head-on-head contact collision. Well, that's when they started that type of deal against Ohio State. But me, I've never been the type of player to be a dirty player. I always been a hard-hitting player, but I've never been the type of player of being dirty.
So have you replayed the play over and over in your mind?
I wish I could rewind everything, go back in time. And on that play right there, I wish I could just use my body weight to lay on them and just to get them down instead of just trying to pick them up and slam them. So
then have you physically watched the tape on it?
So many times. Talking to my family members, they was disappointed in me, and I was just letting them know I wasn't trying to do what I'm doing, but they had my back too. So
Coach Mace says that he talked to you about it after the fact, the day after, as a matter of fact. What did he say to you? Man, you hurt yourself, kid. You gotta be you gotta be smarter than that. We don't teach that type of tackling and stuff like that. But I know your intention was never to hurt Pippeton. It was a bang bang play. It's out of his hands at that point. So. Yeah, so he's just telling me just stay up, stay focused, just go through the process. We got your back. Now, there were some fans that were concerned, feeling that you were pumping up the crowd after the hit. How would you respond to that?
The pumping up the crowd, see, some people talked about that, but the pumping up the crowd was never an attempt of me hurting that, slamming him down. The pumping up the crowd was we got the win. So I'm just pumping up the crowd like, yes, we are 2-0 after our losing streak. Our 6-0 losing streak, 0-6 losing streak that we had. So that was the pumping up the crowd moment. The pumping up the crowd moment was, yes, we winning. I ain't gonna say we back, but we winning. That was the goal.
So Don Hewitt back here with Rough Rider play-by-play voice Dave Thomas. In your conversation, Dave, with Rider head coach Corey Mace, you were mentioning that Williams practiced with the second team today, so it looks like he's pretty much, I would guess, a dead man walking here for Edmonton.
Well, so it was interesting as the way the practice ended, and then Jeremy O'Day went for a walk with Deontay Williams, where we were told that they went to go ahead and they were meeting with the Canadian Football League at that moment. So the decision or any consequence of the hit had not been determined yet. This was Deontay's opportunity to go and discuss the play with whomever was in the room from the Canadian Football League. But to me, it looked like it was more internal discipline from the Saskatchewan Roughriders in holding him accountable for the hit. So they had Amari Henderson move towards the corner position. They moved DeMarcus Fields back to the halfback spot from linebacker, and then they had A.J. Allen in there in the linebacking spot that was occupied by Fields last week. So are the Riders preparing not to have Deontay Williams in the lineup because of suspension, or is it more of an internal discipline thing that's well on display? I'm not sure which of the two it will be, but as Coach Mace kind of explained, we are making sure that we are prepared for any contingency for what may or may not happen on Saturday.
So it's possible they could play a Canadian in the strong side linebacker spot in Edmonton, do you think?
Well, it's a possibility. It's one of those things because Aubrey Miller Jr. could go ahead and pull into that spot. There's Filion, who is back with the team right now. So does he get a shot? I think that for now, maybe it is going to be A.J. Allen that gets the opportunity to move in there. But
it's Tuesday.
It is day one, so we'll find. I think we'll have a better idea of what it looks like tomorrow, as we did see Dalkey taking some reps. Of course, Nelson Lacombo has played safety for the most part this season, but did start the preseason on the corner before Marcus Sales was signed by the team heading into week number 2. So again, it's up in the air, the secondary right now, but all contingencies are being set.
So we know Sean Bain Jr. and Reichel Armstead are not playing in Edmonton. So does Jareth Stearns and Frankie Hickson automatically get into those two positions, or do you think they might actually be serious in playing Ouellette?
No, I don't think. At first, at the start of practice, the way Ouellette was bouncing around, really excited, I thought, oh my goodness, he might come back. But I do believe that they will not rush him back. So this not being near a must-win game for the Riders, because they've got 5 points on Edmonton. Now,
Right.
yeah, the season series is still in the balance, but I truly believe that had Edmonton been able to get a victory in Winnipeg last week, that then it becomes a much more urgent situation for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, so they can be patient with AJ Ouellette. So I would be surprised if he doesn't come back. I would not be surprised if Jareth Stearns comes into the lineup for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, because he took a lot of first-team reps today. The one intriguing one for me is what may or may not happen with Mitchell Picton, because he was out running with the ones. He's eligible to come off the 6-game injured list, but as Coach May said, we're not going to push him. We're just going to make sure and see where he's at maybe after day 2. But again, not having Mitchell Picton, having to run Hunchak out last week after only being in town for 3 days and relying on everything that he's learned over the span of his career from being in Calgary with Mark Mueller, it was pretty impressive. Like, I know there was the one route that him and Trevor Harris would definitely like to have back, which was definitely the touchdown shot.
By the
right?
way, Harris was right on the money.
Oh, absolutely.
But Hunchak, through no fault of his own, is out of shape.
Well, yeah.
He couldn't get there.
And I think he curled his route a little deeper than what Harris anticipated. But yeah, I'm with you. So, again, I think Mitchell Picton will be interesting to see whether or not he can get back into the lineup, because I think the team really misses him.
Well, Duncan Busby, how in the heck, Dave, how in the world has he been on the practice roster this long? Because talking about a smooth athlete, a smooth gait, you even look at his head when he's running his routes, and there's no bounce like there is when you and I run.
No.
and made a great catch for that fourth quarter drive and went high and got the ball. I mean, he was a revelation out there, really, as a third-round pick. I believe he was third round.
Yeah, well, when it comes to Duncan Busby, throughout training camp, him and Joe were neck and neck. Like, they were both competing and battling hard. And at the time, I wasn't sure whether or not either would be able to factor into the lineup, because the Riders had Mitchell Picton, they had Kean Schaefer-Baker, they had Samuel Emelis, they had Jareth Stearns, they had Sean Bain Jr. That's who they broke the camp with, right? And then they had Keyshawn Johnson and Dante Myers, 2 receivers that they were really, really excited about. And what happened was right at the end of camp, Duncan Busby hurt his hand. So that set him back. And then
that's probably how this all evolved.
Yes.
Then, yes.
So then how do you take him out of the lineup when you've got a Joe performing like he is? So you can't. So until a Joe got hurt, then Duncan Busby gets his shot, and had a conversation with him just about his first Canadian Football League start today. And the best part was his wow moment was when he dropped that football and fumbled his first reception as a starter in the Canadian Football League. He goes, "It's the first time I really took a hit, and I remembered these guys get paid too at the time." So.
Well, that's right. Well, he looks like a good one. And I just got a funny feeling he's not coming off the field anytime soon.
No.
After that performance. He was clearly the best receiver in the game, against the Ottawa Red Blacks on Saturday. He clearly was.
Well, yeah, and if you want to cover Samuel Emelis, who's number 3 in targets right now in the Canadian Football League, go ahead. You want then you cover Kean Schaefer-Baker. Okay, so who's next in that succession line? And Keyshawn Johnson drew a lot of coverage over the top. I was surprised at how much attention Ottawa had paid to him, but somebody's got to be open when you're doubling guys different places on the field, and Duncan Busby was the benefactor of that.
Well, one guy that sort of did a Duncan Busby was Dante Myers when he came in play. He looked like he possibly had the most speed of any receiver on the team. I thought there was a drop-off, when he got the concussion, I assumed that it was, and didn't play after that. There was a drop-off in sort of how open receivers were getting, because he was creating space with his speed. What is his status right now?
I don't know. All I can report is what I see, and he's still in a sling. So this is 3 weeks now.
Okay, so it wasn't a concussion then.
No, he's in his arm's in a sling. So I'm assuming shoulder, but again, he had such an impressive start, and again, he was set back by a hand injury as well at the end of training camp. So Keyshawn Johnson has been terrific. Like, the Riders' receiving room depth is extraordinary. And again, I was thinking last week, wow, who's going to draw in? Then I forgot. Oh yeah, Jareth Stearns. He's been waiting for a chance, and he isn't bitter or anything. He's just ready to get back on the field and play. And he's excited for the opportunity, and all indications will be that he gets the start on Saturday.
Yeah, and the good thing about him is the quarterback knows where he is. And speaking of the quarterback, nobody's really talking about how great Trevor Harris is playing. I mean, in Calgary, as you well know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know at all about the Roughriders, but he sets an all-time record for the Saskatchewan Roughriders in completion percentage. I thought, does anybody realize all the great quarterbacks that he just, including Ron Lancaster, that he just broke everybody's record? And then, the difference between the winless streak in that 7 games, when they, of course, lost by 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 points, and now it seems to be the monkey off their back in Calgary and the confidence that they played with against Ottawa as a result, it seemed like, because when Trevor Harris came out onto that field in the fourth quarter and, marched the ball down the field and scored the touchdown, it was different from this 7-game winless streak. It's almost like you knew he was going to do it.
Yeah, and Trevor has been sensational, hasn't he? And you mentioned that 16 for 18 game in Calgary. There's the detractors. There's always got to be a detractor, right? Well, he only threw the ball 18 times. Well, he didn't have to. You had a running back run it for 207. So what I think that has done, and what will be very, very key and critical in Edmonton this week, is if it's Frankie Hickson, who I would anticipate gets the start this week, if it's Frankie, the Riders need to go ahead and establish the run game early, because they are an entirely different team when you have to defend and respect the run, like Ottawa had to do with Raquel. And again, Ottawa was creeping guys up. They didn't want to, but that's what they did, and it's an entirely different offense. And that's what Mark Mueller, I think, came in drawing up at the start of the season was, okay, I've got A.J. Ouellette. I know I'm going to be able to run the ball because this is just going to be a thing. But then he gets down to his 13th offensive lineman. By the way, it looks like we may have a new offensive lineman coming in, as Jacob Brammer didn't practice today. But
oh, really?
Yeah, I know that.
So will Jones be back?
I don't think so. They actually went with another guy on the depth chart today, and that was a bit of a surprise as well, as I thought Nick Jones might draw back in. But they took a couple of different looks today. So, again, it's day one. We'll see what Tuesday. Day 2 is. So Jacob Brammer just may have got a day off to keep off of the knee, of course, which he was nursing back out onto the field last week. So maybe nothing. We'll find out tomorrow. But I believe the official status was that he was limited today.
Yeah, okay. Well, one last thing I wanted to talk to you about. The Roughriders posted the video after the game against Ottawa, with Furland giving the game ball to head coach Corey Mace, and then the players threw Corey Mace into the hot tub. It was a great video the Roughriders posted, and it's interesting because Corey Mace is really of the same generation as the players. And do you see sort of the chemistry or the relationships between Mace and the players every day, and you notice that there's something magical about it? Because that video, you knew the coach and the players loved them.
Well, so the video, the premise behind the video was that there's a rule that they have, whether it's spoken or not, that you never call the offensive lineman fat. And so apparently he, a couple of weeks ago in a meeting, said that the O-linemen were too fat to go chase after the ball or something to that. And again, it was taken in jest. It wasn't mean. And so when he let that slip, the team decided that they weren't going to go, that they had to punish that. Hence, he was thrown in the cold tub after the game for that discretion. But getting to your question and your point, I think that it's really an interesting dynamic because it's kind of like an older brother, but like a much older brother. So we're not talking like 2 or 3 years, but like the dynamic is when, and I kind of go back to my rural roots on this one. So, the older brother got to drive the good combine, and the older brother didn't have to do the last sweeping of the bin and stuff like that. That's kind of what it is, because he lays down the law, he set the standard, but at the same time, if you need to lean on his shoulder, he is right there for each and every one of his players. And it's a dynamic that I've never seen before. And cool. It may exist in other places, but it's truly special, and it's truly very mutual respect between the players and the coach, which I don't think you often find.
That's cool. I want Dave to hear this, Colson, if we could, to run just in a second that audio clip with Pete Rose and our own Brendan McGuire. Now, let me scene set this
Okay.
Dave. Of course, Brendan is the voice of the Regina Rams on 620 CKRM. In 2005, he was working in Windsor, Ontario. He was the voice of the Windsor, Ontario hockey team. And he was doing some assignments that day. Pete Rose had a press conference. A lot of media came over from Detroit, again, 2005.
Yeah.
And he was still working in, not just doing the Spitfires. He was still working as a reporter, and he came late. And Pete Rose was addressing the media, and Brendan walked up and started, setting up his mic and stuff on the podium. And Pete Rose wasn't very happy about it, and we've got the audio of it. So let's hear that, Colson.
Hang on a minute, ruin the whole press conference. You're a half hour late. Now I don't want to hear the traffic. Did you have traffic?
Yes, I did.
Okay. You got time? You got a question?
One more question. I was just going to ask you, when you travel around places like this and then you come across the border, do you find that you're gaining more and more support in your bid?
No, I've only been here 10 minutes. And, most people understand how I played the game, and most people understand I made a mistake.
That was interesting, though. So Brendan had sort of a brush with fame as Pete Rose died yesterday. The leading hits in Major League Baseball history, 3 World Series, one of the best switch hitters of all time. And he joked around with Brendan after the press conference about it. And Brendan was thrilled because he was like exchanging jokes with them.
Wow.
If we could go to that picture, I want to ask Dave one more question. If we could go to that picture of Brendan in the Winnipeg press box calling the Rams last weekend. He was in the CJOB booth.
Okay.
And I wanted your opinion on this because this is your gig.
Okay.
And he said that there was no question that the broadcast facilities at Mosaic Stadium are far better than those at Princess Auto Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Because he couldn't even stand up in the CJOB booth. He hit his head on some glass. Do we have that picture, guys? I don't know if we can show it. They're going to look for it. But anyway, Dave.
No, I've been there. Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's a sit-down booth. I've been at Princess Auto Stadium. I almost called it the former name, but I don't mind it. You're tucked away a little bit further down the field than you are at Mosaic Stadium. Like, Mosaic Stadium is real nice that you're centered and you've got a nice big booth around you, but it's nowhere near the BMO Field experience where Luke and I are basically sitting on each other's laps. So.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's not that, but they do make up for it with a good pregame meal, as Luke will have you know. Just so you know.
I think Luke would take advantage of that.
Oh, absolutely. We've got the Mullender stars instead of Michelin stars. We've got Mullender stars out on the road, and he hands them out for his meals every time. So
we'll try to get that picture later because we're running a little bit late. We got to get to Dante to talk about the Pats. So thanks for joining us again, Dave. Sportscage continues in just a moment.
The all-new Sports Cage is brought to you by Sherwood Co-op Liquor Stores. Now open in Harbor Landing and Rochdale Boulevard.
Get the farm equipment you need at upcoming Ritchie Brothers farm sales this fall. Ritchie Brothers is hosting close to 20 farm auctions between October 9th and December 12th. For the latest auction schedule, visit rbauction.com. Choose from hundreds of farm equipment items, including combines, tractors, trucks, headers, trailers, farmland, and much more. Register for free, then bid online at rbauction.com.
Winter brings tougher driving weather, and that means it's time to winter up those tires on your vehicle. Regina Motor Products has got an offer that will make your ride safer and your wallet happier. Before you hit the snowy open road, get your tires swapped for winter with rebates as high as $120 off a full set of winter tires. You don't want to wait. Book now and be ready for all that cold stuff. Visit rmpchevrolet.com.
What type of vehicle should you use for a fall hayride?
I bet you're going to be punny.
An automobile?
Ugh. Whatever type of vehicle you drive, fuel up at Sherwood Co-op gas bars.
As a member, fueling up means
sharing in the equity.
Buy a car wash or some snacks from the C-store.
It's like putting money in the bank.
You better believe it.
Sherwood Co-op gas bars.
We are members.
We are owners.
We are Sherwood Co-op.
Your Co-op Grow team are your local experts because we live here too. Our agronomic specialists stay up to date with the latest research and technology to help support your entire farm operation. Talk to our team for advice tailored to your farm's needs. We have recommendations to help you optimize your crop yield and quality while enhancing the health of your land. Co-op, we're all growing together. Here for your farm, here for your family. Learn more at coop.crs/farm.
Welcome back to the all-new Sports Cage. Connect with the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262.
And it's Don Hewitt back with the Sports Cage. And don't forget, the all-new Sports Cage is proud to be the voice of amateur football in Saskatchewan. Every Friday at 4:30, listen for Friday Night Lights, a complete rundown of all high school football action. Friday Night Lights is brought to you by Regina Motor Products. And let us know about the big game this weekend. Send us an email to hi@sportscage.com. And Colson, we've got a contest, Pick the Score. What's the latest with that one?
So we're playing Pick the Score today. You're picking the score for the Saskatchewan Roughrider game in Edmonton. And if we pick you for texting in the score and the winning team, then you will get tickets to the October 12th game, which is when BC is here. And if your score is the closest to this game against the Elks, then you will win a $200 SaskTel gift card. If your score is the closest to the real score.
Okay.
Yeah. So just text in your name, phone number, what you think the score is going to be, and who's going to win.
Sounds good. Well, a very good-looking radio voice of the Regina Pats is right here on 620 CKRM, and he joins us on the all-new streaming Sports Cage, Dante DeCaria. And you can, of course, catch Dante, because I did the other day on Pats TV over on Access Communications with Kelly Rempel, the Silver Fox. And I'm going to tell you something about Kelly Rempel, Dante, that I don't think is going to surprise you, because oddly enough, he has a truck with a personalized plate of Remps, R-A-M-P-S. And let's just say that I saw you in Moose Jaw this past spring when the Warriors were on their run, but let's just say this. When he drives to Moose Jaw to watch the Warriors game, Dante, he is not going slow. It's like a blur. And we were traveling the legal limit on the highway. What do you think of that?
Surprised to hear that, Don.
What's that?
I wouldn't be surprised to hear that, Don.
No. All you can see is his little Remps on the plate, and then he's gone. Anyway, I really enjoyed that Pat game. A Sunday afternoon, Dante. A big overtime win for the Pats on that particular afternoon, which was particularly impressive for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of the Warriors on that team played in the Memorial Cup and have a lot of experience. And also, they had to play most of the game without their captain and star, Tanner Howe. He picked up an injury, so what's his status at the moment, Dante?
Funny you mentioned that. I just had an opportunity to sit down and chat with Tanner Howe. The Pats just got off the ice here at practice, and it looks like Tanner went for an examination today. He's got an upper body injury, and still no timetable on when he could return. As it stands right now, he went hard with his wrist into the boards. So they're just checking out that risk, trying to make sure that it's not broken or not sprained or anything like that. So hopefully good news in the next couple of days.
Do you think he'll be back in action this weekend, or it's really hard to say?
Well, if you ask Tanner Howe, he's playing on Saturday, and that's what he told me. So let's hope he's in on Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, we hope so. You're listening, actually missing a few guys, so we can talk about that. Like Cole Temple was scratched, and 5th overall pick in the 2022 WHL draft. And I texted you yesterday, where was Cole Temple? He was scratched, and I almost fell off my chair. So what's the deal with that?
Yeah, I'm really happy you asked this question, Don, because a lot of people on social media were wondering why he was a healthy scratch on Sunday. And, as someone who has coached, not at the same level as Brad Haroff, but I really do appreciate how Brad Haroff holds every single player on his roster accountable. It really doesn't matter whether you're a 19 or 20-year-old, you're a 5th overall pick like Cole Temple, or you're Connor Bedard, for example. right? And obviously Brad wasn't the head coach when Connor was here, but I just wanted to throw that out that it really doesn't matter who you are. He's going to hold you accountable, and he keeps everybody on their toes. You have to play at your very best in order to have a spot in this Pats lineup. They have a lot of depth up front. There are a lot of players fighting for ice time. There are, a 16-year-old like Cohen Clausen, who I thought he had his best game as a Regina Pat on Sunday, who's fighting to stay on this Pats roster. How about Zach Lansard? He was a healthy scratch as well. He probably deserves to play in the lineup too. There's so many spots on this Pats roster, but right now they're not playing a ton of games, right? So it's nothing against Cole Temple as a person. He didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't in trouble by any means. Obviously, the coaching staff felt that he hasn't been off to a great start, maybe didn't have a good game on Friday night, so they decided to healthy scratch him on Sunday, and hopefully we see him back in the lineup on Saturday.
So is this more to do with his defensive play, Dante?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. Like, I watch him, and I don't think he's been too bad this season, Don. I think he has potential. I think he has more confidence with the puck than he did last year. But there is definitely still some learning curves in terms of, playing with compete every single shift, in terms of going out there and knowing how to play without the puck, not turning the puck over, understanding his role. He's still just 17 years old, and it's a big jump from playing U18 hockey to playing WHL hockey. So I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question. It's tough for me to judge. It's only been 4 games this season. I think he has a bright future with the Regina Pats, but like I said earlier, I'm somebody that when I coach my U13 baseball team, it doesn't matter who you are. I'll bench anybody. It really doesn't matter. And I think Brad Haroff has the same mindset.
Well, I was listening to your post-game show when you were chatting with Pat assistant coach Ken Schneider, and he made an interesting point. He said the Pats aren't going to win 7-6. They're going to have to win 2-1. And I really noticed some great defensive play and the team getting back fast. It looked like they were playing at 3-2 at times, but they were lined up in that 3-2 before Moose Jaw was even coming down the ice with the puck. So it looks like, bottom line, if you're not looking after your own end, you may be sitting on the bench for the Pats.
Yeah, that's a really good analysis by you, Don. I think you hit it, nail on the head right there. Alan Miller, Brad Haroff, and the rest of the coaching staff truly do value playing without the puck and how to play without the puck. Because it's funny, I forget who told me this, but someone said this to me, and it's quite interesting, and I never thought about it until maybe last year, but 95 or 98% of the time that you're on the ice, you don't have the puck on your stick. So you better be good at playing without the puck, right? And in order to get the puck, you have to know where to be without the puck. In order to score goals, there's the old cliche, you have to do things right in your own end. You have to play the right way. You have to stop on pucks. You don't coast around. You don't cheat, if you know what I mean, Don. In cheating meetings, don't get above the puck. Stay behind the puck. And there are some players that do cheat, if you look around the WHL, but they find different ways to contribute, whether it's scoring 50 or 60 goals like Connor Bedard did. And I'm not going to be the first to say it on the show. Connor Bedard would cheat, but man, was he so good when he could get that puck. It was almost an automatic goal. So Brad Haroff is trying to hold everybody on this Regina Pats roster accountable, and that means you have to take care of your own zone because this Pats roster, and it's a very good team. I do like the forwards that they have up front, is not going to win 5-2, 6-2. They're probably going to win games 3-2 or 4-3. Both goaltenders have played exceptionally well to start the season, and they have a young back end as well. So the forwards need to take care of their own end first before trying to play offense because this back end is very inexperienced and very young.
Well, I like to call your goalie Hewitt. I don't know why, because of the spelling, but really that's not how you pronounce his name. It's Hewitt, is it not? But he was outstanding. He had a great summer, apparently, from what I read from you, reading your online material. And, man, he was hotter than a firecracker against Moose Jaw.
Yeah, I think he's come in here prepared and ready to go. I mean, he's a 19-year-old, so there's really no excuses. Last year, it was quite a transition coming over from, European hockey to the Western Hockey League, and he obviously had his hiccups and his ups and downs. But now that he knows what the team expects from him and what North American hockey is like, there's really no excuses. So he understands that. He understands that both him and Kelton Pine are really trying to grab that starting job. And Rob Vanstone said it every single post-game show. It felt like it was a broken record that no one really grabbed that starting goaltending job last year. So Don, I think Ewan Huey wants to grab that starting job. and so does Kelton Pine as well. So I think you're going to see both of those goaltenders at their very, very, very best every single night. And I think that only benefits the Regina Pats. I've been impressed with Ewan Hewitt. I've been really impressed with Kelton Pine. I thought he was exceptional on Friday in Moose Jaw.
Right.
He kept that Pats team in it throughout 40 to 60 minutes of play. I know Moose Jaw wins that game 4-3, or 4-2, pardon me. But if not for Kelton Pine, it could have got a lot larger than that. And same for Ewan Hewitt. I mean, you talk about a double minor penalty by Corbin Allman. I know Moose Jaw ties the game, but even in overtime, they get a 2-minute power play, and Ewan Hewitt makes a couple of big saves on Moose Jaw.
Yeah, he definitely, I thought, won the game for you, really. Now, another 19-year-old who seems like he's come on as a 19-year-old looks a lot better than last year, I think, is Zachary Shantz. I mean, Shantz was on fire. He's all over the ice. So has he been really strong from the go right from training camp on?
Yeah, it's funny. Myself and Kelly Rempel talked to him earlier this morning, and we asked him, did you have any goals for yourself coming into this season? And he kind of talked a little bit about, how he knew there were a lot of forwards fighting for spots. And, of course, Alan Miller essentially made his decision with the forwards that he had, releasing Drew Mushimansky and Harper Lolliker. And Zachary Shantz essentially won the job that he has right now, and he's moved himself up the lineup. I mean, he gives Brad Haroff a lot more flexibility when he's able to play like he has. I mean, he leads the team in goals with 3 and in points of 6 through 4 games this season. So Brad Haroff's able to use him as a first-line center. And when Tanner Howe went down, Zachary Shantz was taking all the ozone draws with Braxton Whitehead, was playing on the penalty kill, and was playing in all situations, 5-on-5, you name it. To me, that is just so nice to see because he's somebody who has the skill. This is a guy that the Pats traded for several years ago. They had to give up Cole Davinsky, traded him to Prince George. They got Zachary Shantz in a third-round pick in return. So we've been kind of waiting for a couple of years to see this guy kind of bluster into the player that we think he can be. I know John Paddock was really high on him when he acquired him a couple of years ago, so it's so nice to see such a great kid who comes from an Indigenous community in Sucker Creek really kind of shine early in the season. I am knocking on wood right now, Don, because obviously we want to see him play consistent throughout the year. We hope that it's just not right now. We hope it continues throughout the season. So super proud of Zach and the work that he's put in. He's a great kid. He has great skill, and I think it couldn't have happened to a much better person, especially with the background that he has. His grandfather has been at every single game to start the season, and Zach, I think, spoke with you guys and spoke with other media outlets about how he's got that Indigenous background. He's very proud of that, and his grandfather was a part of those residential schools. So he said that he's thinking of him and he's playing for him.
Now, one guy that really surprised me watching him in the playoffs last year with Saskatoon was John Babcock, a defensive defenseman. Next thing you know, he gets 3 assists against Moose Jaw. Is Babcock changing his style and starting to be a scoring force?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that, Don. I spoke with John Babcock about that earlier this week or maybe over the weekend, and John said, I'm 20. I want to contribute offensively now. I had 23 points a couple of years ago. It's time to step it up offensively, and he's really relishing that role that the coaching staff has put him in as both a defensive defenseman, but a guy that can also push the puck up the ice. I thought he was exceptional, playing over 26 minutes of ice time on Sunday against Moose Jaw, taking all the big-time matchups against a guy like Lyndon Lakovich, for example. I thought John Babcock was huge for this Pats roster. And then you just look at the offensive numbers that he could maybe produce. I don't expect him to score 15 to 16 goals this season, but maybe he could chime in with 8 or 9. That's my prediction. I think he could be a 30 to 35-point guy from the back end. Is he going to average 3 assists per game? No. But it's so nice to have John Babcock on your roster because I thought the Pats lacked leadership from their 20-year-olds last year, especially with Parker Berg moving on to Everett. So it's really nice to see a guy that's come in and embraced this leadership role. He's taken the young players under his wing. He's just such an amazing person. I was here at the rink earlier today, and in talking with John, he was asking me, do you need help with anything? Do you need help, setting up things, or what do you need me to do? I'm not skating in the afternoon. I skated this morning. I said, John, don't worry about it. Just stick to being a player. Don't worry about me. He's just he's an amazing person. I think the boys just absolutely love him.
Now, sort of on the flip side of somebody that's maybe disappointing, the head coach and the general manager, Corbin Vaughn, takes another suspension for a hit to the head in Moose Jaw on Friday. And I can't imagine how many times the administration and the coaching staff have talked to him about this. Is he ever going to get it that, he could ruin his hockey career, really, and he's needed. He's got lots of skill. He was at an NHL camp. He could really ruin his hockey career if he can't stop this. So is he feeling any remorse at all now after so many times where he's been suspended for the same reason?
Well, I have maybe a couple different ways to answer this question, Don. Number one, I do think he has remorse. He's not that type of person. You talk to this gentleman on the ice, off the ice, him and Jackson both. They're just balls of fun. They have so much energy. They have so much enthusiasm. They're very polite. I mean, maybe just to share this story, they also come from Indigenous culture as well. Their family has that background. And this off season, they were going to their native band to different rinks in Merritt, in that area, and talking to the Indigenous community at their schools, and trying to talk about, how they can progress and play hockey and trying to be role models. They want to be role models. And they were the community players of the year for the Regina Pats. Every single skate, every time it was posted on the board, do you want to go to a school? Do you want to go sign autographs? Do you want to do this? Do you want to skate with the Blind Hockey League like they did last year? They were the first two kids to raise their hand while also going to school in the morning. It didn't matter. Those guys would go to school, they would go to community events, and they would practice with the team. So both of those young kids, Jackson and Corbin Vaughn, are exceptional people, and they come from a great family. Big Al, as we call him, and he's a big man, is a really good person. I've had the chance to get to know his mom, Chelsea, and they're great people. They've been raised the right way, and I've really enjoyed my time with Corbin and Jackson Vaughn. So I don't think it has any malicious intent, right? These are two players that have been brought up this way, and players that want to play with that physicality and with that hardness. And I know you just mentioned, can it ruin their careers? It might go the other way around. Now, you don't want to see them suspended, but I mean, you've been around the game for a long time. Don't you think an AHL or East Coast League team would be knocking on the door right now saying, hey, we want these guys? Because if you think about it, maybe at the higher level, when they're playing against men, if you have a 20 or 21-year-old kid that comes in and he's not afraid to drop the gloves and lay a hit, then maybe you're an ECHL team or an AHL team that says, I want that guy on my roster. You never know.
They went to NHL camps for a reason, and you'd have to...
And look who took him, Pat Verbeek. Pat Verbeek took Jackson Vaughn. We know what Pat Verbeek likes, right?
The little ball of hate, Pat Verbeek. One of the best nicknames in sports, Dante, the little ball of hate. Now, let's just finish off with the kiss of death. The kiss of death for the Medicine Hat Tigers. Everybody just says, just give them the Ed Chenoweth Cup and get the whole thing over with. And when that happens, it never happens, so to speak. So are they that good? And I'll ask you a two-part question. Are they that good? And are the Pats right in the mix in the WHL East?
I want to apologize to Les Lazarus for making this comment, but weren't the Saskatoon Blades planning the parade after the trade deadline? Right?
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. They cannot hand the Ed Chenoweth Cup to the Medicine Hat Tigers. Now, I do think they are the best team in the Western Hockey League and the best team in the Eastern Conference, but they still have something to prove. And I do think Willie Desjardins will possibly make some moves, right? Gavin McKenna and the Medicine Hat Tigers will be coming to town in the month of November. So this is a very talented team. This is a very good team, but what are they going to do in net? What are they going to do defensively? How are they going to add to their forward group in terms of how it complements going into next year, where I assume they will host the Memorial Cup? I have nothing to back that up. I just think that they have a great facility. It's a great city, and they have the team to do it. I saw all the teams that have put their bid to host the Memorial Cup. I think number one would be Medicine Hat in terms of the roster. Maybe Berkeley Cadden and the Spokane Chiefs, and then probably the Brandon Wheat Kings of Roger McQueen and Charlie Ellick being 19 years old next year. But you can't give them the cup just yet. It'd be foolish, because I thought Saskatoon was planning their parade after the trade deadline, and Moose Jaw came in and swiped it right away and defeated the Portland Winterhawks in the league final. So that's junior hockey. That's the WHL for you. I think there's a lot of parity in the league this year. I think 2 through 11 in the Eastern Conference standings, anybody can win on any given night. So we'll just have to wait and see.
So Saskatoon, they were active at the trade deadline last year, as you just said, and probably one of the greatest series in the history of the Western Hockey League between Saskatoon and Moose Jaw. But they seem to be a strong team again. I mean, how good are they? Like you're suggesting, if they add a few pieces, the trade deadline, Saskatchewan could once again be right in the mix for winning the East and whatnot?
Well, Donnie, how can they add pieces? Like they're in trouble. Like they don't have a lot of draft picks and they don't have a lot of bodies. The players they have right now, I mean, they're going to have to move Tanner Molendyk. They're going to have to move maybe Brandon Lazowski when he comes back. Like they're off to a good start. They have a world-class goalie in Evan Gardner. I know Austin Elliott's been playing, but I think Evan Gardner's a world-class goaltender and he got drafted where he did for a reason. But they don't have assets to move. And Kelly Rempel says this every single year. It sounds like a broken record. He said it this morning on Pat's TV, and I turned around and said, okay, I've heard this one before. But he says usually around Halloween, a little bit after November, you start to see the teams separate themselves, right? Saskatchewan's been off to a great start, and I think they're a good team. I like Ben Rice. I like Calvert. I like the players that they have, Tyler Parr, that are contributing offensively right now. Ben Saunderson's a good defenseman, and they obviously have good goaltending. And I think they have an amazing coach in Dan DeSilva. I really do respect that coaching staff. Him and Wasey Rabbit do an amazing job. Really love Brendan Sawney as well, and I think he really deserved that opportunity with the Seattle Kraken organization. But, again, they just don't have the assets. Like, what are they going to do? They have to recoup those assets, or else they'll be screwed.
Right. Okay, well, that's a good answer because, they are off to a good start. There's no doubt about it, but what are they going to do at the trade deadline? The answer is maybe they can't do anything. Anyway, Dante, keep up the great job with what you're doing on both 620 CKRM and the Pats Radio broadcast and putting up with Kelly Rempel. Anyway,
thank you so much, Don. My pleasure to join you.
Yeah, have a good afternoon, Dante. Sportscage continues in just a moment.
Hi, this is Stephen Art from the Tire Stewardship of Saskatchewan. We're the ones responsible for recycling your tires. We're a non-profit corporation that was established to serve as the scrap tire recycling program operator in Saskatchewan, approved by the Ministry of the Environment. We're responsible to all stakeholders, including consumers who pay the tire environmental fee, the collectors, the Ministry of the Environment, and the people of Saskatchewan. Visit tssk.ca to see how you can recycle your tires.
SaskPower is working to improve the power system in your area. In order to do their work safely, they need to shut the power off for customers in and around Kamsack, including Madge Lake, Runnymede, Cote, and other surrounding communities from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. tomorrow, October 2nd, weather permitting. Again, the power will be out for 4 hours tomorrow from 1 to 5 p.m. for customers in and around Kamsack. For updates on this outage, visit saskpower.com/outages.
Howdy, it's your old pal Wood Country Woody here. Building a fence or corral? Of course you are. That's why y'all need to be seeing the good folks down at Wood Country. Wood Country's your one-stop fencing shop with everything you need right now. Heeled rails, slabs, rough-cut lumber, fence posts, and barbed wire. Get on into Wood Country. Post-haste. In McLean, Estevan, and Tisdale.
Your home is your castle.
Shop online, wood-country.com.
Love the outdoors? Come to Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's National Seasonal Hiring Event, October 9th and 10th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. for on-the-spot interviews for full-time, part-time, and seasonal positions. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here.
Get the farm equipment you need at upcoming Ritchie Brothers farm sales this fall. Ritchie Brothers is hosting close to 20 farm auctions between October 9th and December 12th. For the latest auction schedule, visit rbauction.com. Choose from hundreds of farm equipment items, including combines, tractors, trucks, headers, trailers, farmland, and much more. Register for free, then bid online at rbauction.com.
Hey Rider Nation, this is Dave Thomas, voice of your Saskatchewan Roughriders. Listen to this. How does a 50-50 payday sound? Sounds like a win to me. Huddle up to riders5050.ca and you can purchase 50-50 tickets for every Rider game, home or away. You can even score quickly with the early bird prize. This week, it's a road trip to Edmonton to see the Oilers. And you'll be in for the massive weekly jackpots. Buy now at riders5050.ca and support amateur football in Saskatchewan. Sponsored by ISC. License LR 2426.
The Strawmaster X Disc Harrow from Degelman Industries features disc on-command technology and gives you the ability to cover large acres at high speeds in a large working width. The impressive design of the Strawmaster X allows for more tillage than a traditional heavy harrow, but less aggressive than a high-speed disc. It will size residue while still leaving some standing material to catch snow. Contact your local Degelman dealer or visit degelman.com for more information. Degelman, engineered tough.
It's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. It's mostly cloudy and it's 15 degrees in Regina. I'm Corey Atkinson from the Harvard Media News Center with 620 CKRM News for Sherwood Co-op Liquor Store, now open in Harbor Landing and on Rochdale Boulevard, and by Mercedes-Benz Regina, for those who can. Mercedes-Benz-Regina.ca. The leader of the Saskatchewan Party spoke with the Lieutenant Governor this morning, and the writ has dropped, signifying that the election campaign period has officially begun with the election on October 28th. Sask Party leader Scott Moe announced in Saskatoon that if elected, the Saskatchewan Party promised to make the largest income tax reduction since 2008. Moe promises to reduce income tax by raising the personal income tax exemption amount, along with the spousal and child exemptions and the senior supplement by $500 each year for the next 4 years.
We will also continue to index Saskatchewan income tax rates at the rate of inflation, which means that the tax reduction, when combined with all of this and indexation, will save a family of four about $3,400 and will save a seniors couple about $3,100 over the next 4 years.
Moe says raising the personal income tax exemption would mean another 54,000 people. Meanwhile, NDP leader Carla Beck says Moe's record is one that made life more expensive.
We need a government that is going to work with the people of the province to ensure that we're getting best value when we're spending those taxpayer dollars, and that can deliver results.
Beck has accused Moe of creating more debt than any other Saskatchewan premier and took the province to last place in education and health care. On Monday at around 1 p.m., police responded to a motor vehicle incident at the intersection of Albert Street and 1st Avenue. A pedestrian was hit by a vehicle while crossing. The adult male pedestrian suffered serious injuries and reported to hospital by EMS. The scene and cooperated with authorities. Police had blocked off the northbound traffic temporarily to conduct their investigation. The incident is still under investigation and is unclear if any charges will be laid. U.S. Department of Defense spokesperson Major General Pat Ryder says America coordinated closely with Israel's military to help defend it against what he calls a significant attack by Iran. He says they intercepted a significant number of projectiles.
U.S. Navy destroyers deployed to the Middle East region supported the defense of Israel by firing approximately a dozen interceptors against the incoming Iranian missiles.
Israel says it'll continue to strike Hezbollah until it's safe for citizens from near the Lebanon border to return. And Charlie Puth makes fun of Charlie Puth in the new series, The Charlie Puth Show. It's a mockumentary in which Puth plays a fictionalized version of himself as he tries to boost his career. That includes getting a mom manager, who is not his mom, writing jingles with John Legend about products that companies hope he'll endorse, and trying his hand at a country album. Will Ferrell, Dorinda Medley, and Courtney Cox make guest appearances. The Charlie Puth Show starts streaming on Roku on Friday. That's your 620 CKRM News. Read more stories from around your community and around the province at sasktoday.ca and 620ckrm.com. Sport or weather is next.
What type of vehicle should you use for a fall hayride?
I bet you're going to be punny.
An automobile?
Ugh. Whatever type of vehicle you drive, fuel up at Sherwood Co-op gas bars.
As a member, fueling up means
sharing in the equity.
Buy a car wash or some snacks from the C-store.
It's like putting money in the bank.
You better believe it.
Sherwood Co-op gas bars.
We are members.
We are owners.
We are Sherwood Co-op.
Style. Performance. Upgrade your daily driver to the new 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLB 250. This SUV packs a punch with features that make a normal drive exhilarating. The ultimate in automotive luxury can be yours for $419 bi-weekly. The friendly and knowledgeable staff at Mercedes-Benz Regina will help you find the exact model you want. Take a test drive and feel the difference. Stop by for an award-winning experience at Mercedes-Benz Regina, recipient of the Star Dealer Award.
And now it's time for your 620 CKRM Precision Weather Forecast for Line X Regina. Serious protection, killer looks, 1865 McCarra Street, and brought to you by Wolf Industries, your truck repair specialists in Grenfell, servicing all sizes of trucks, SGI accredited. Tonight, partly cloudy with some isolated showers late and a low of 5. Tomorrow, early cloud and then increasing sunshine and a high of 13. On Thursday, mostly sunny and a high of 12. At this hour in Moose Jaw, it's mostly cloudy. Winds are from the west at 33 and it's 16 degrees. Regina is also mostly cloudy. Winds are from the west at 22, gusting to 35, and it's 15. For more local news that matters to you, subscribe to the daily newsletter at sasktoday.ca.
Whether Smokey's after you or not, when you're on the road in your big rig, you're in a hurry to get to where you're going, and you need a part shop you can trust. Wolf Industries is the premium choice. They're your family-run truck mechanic shop with a full line of parts for big semis, with certified AC technicians for the hot summer. Stop in at their Grenfell location for all the parts and repairs you need. They're SGI accredited for safety inspections and have 24-hour emergency call-out. Wolf Industries, the best for your truck. 10-4.
When you want the best for your truck, you want Line-X. Your truck has withstood the harshest elements Saskatchewan has thrown at it. Rocks, gravel, rain, sleet, and snow, and left with no chips, no rust. Line-X protective coating keeps your truck's bed liners, rocker panels, and bumpers looking like brand new. Don't settle for Brand X. Go with Line-X. It's serious protection. Come see why everybody loves taking their truck to Line-X Regina for their rocker panels, bumpers, and more. Line-X. Make your truck complete. 1865 McCarra Street.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents the all-new Sports Cage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Sask Lotteries, bringing communities together. Sask Lottery products fund over 12,000 sports, culture, and recreation groups across Saskatchewan. Be a part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The all-new Sports Cage. Streaming at sportscage.com and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
And Sportsnet's Arash Madani now joins us on the all-new streaming Sports Cage. Of course, Arash and everybody on the Sports Cage, video and audio, brought to you by Western Pizza Hotline. It's the pizza that knows worldwide that it's good. Loaded with toppings of Western Canadian ingredients. Not Eastern Canadian ingredients that Arash might eat. Only Western Canadian ingredients, and always cooked to perfection. Well, Arash, thanks for joining us. What
is an Eastern Canadian ingredient, Mr. Hewitt?
I think the salami is quite different between the two sides of the country. I think so.
I mean, I grew up in Nova Scotia, so I was wondering if you meant the seafood. Like, we're talking oysters, we're talking mussels. I wasn't sure.
Well, seafood's not good in Saskatchewan usually. It's a little long to get distance-wise.
That's right.
It's not like eating.
We're not farming oysters on the prairies.
No. If you want some good bread, though, this is the place. Or some good beef. You want a good steak? Right. Come on over to Saskatchewan.
Beauty.
You know, Arash, I've always maintained one thing you never want to do in this business is be boring. And you are at the top of the list because you're never boring. Did you sort of figure out that golden rule at some point in your career that you never drift off when Arash is chatting?
Well, it's just one of those things, Don. I think you have to be honest with people. I think that's something that's lost these days. People seem to hate the truth too, and they call you negative instead of just being honest about it. And I've thought a lot over the last not quite 24 hours, like to have an honest conversation about Pete Rose, right?
I'm glad you started there. Yep.
So we live in a world now where you can't go 10 minutes in the sports content world without having a gambling partner or sponsor.
That's right.
You go into any kind of stadium, you go into any kind of social media, there's gambling partners everywhere. Everyone's got their hand out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the world in 2024, and it wasn't the world in the 70s and 80s. I understand that. And if we're really going to get into the moral dilemma or the moral conversation of morality among public figures, not just athletes, we would not have Hall of Fames. The Hall of Fame, to me, is a museum. And a museum is about a building that showcases the history of what has gone on. And the history of baseball needs to have Pete Rose in it. Pete Rose, over 4,000 hits, 13 All-Star game. He went to the All-Star game, Don, 5 different positions. I also believe that the Hall of Fame needs to have Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens in it and have a steroid wing. Let's if we're going to talk about baseball history, you cannot talk about the game without doping being a big part of it. And so, Pete Rose made a lot of mistakes in his life. Pete Rose could have handled things a lot better at a lot different stages of his life, and he didn't. But it is absurd that Pete Rose is not in Cooperstown, that Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame.
Totally agree. I'm glad you said that because I agree. And the fact is, when he was a manager for the Reds, he bet on his own team. The problem is he lied afterwards. He denied it for, I think, a number of years. He finally, tell me if I'm wrong, he finally had a press conference and admitted it and came clean that he did it. But after all these years, and exactly for many of the reasons you just stated, he should have seen Cooperstown before he died. Because look at what he did. I mean, you can argue he's in the possibly top 5 of all-time baseball players. Would you consider that realistic? And he's not in Cooperstown, and nobody would forgive him, and I don't like it at all.
No, but that's where I'll disagree with you, Don. I think that if Pete Rose came out and admitted it maybe a little bit earlier and apologized and said, I'm going to make it my, I'm going to go to spring training and talk to young ball players and tell them about the pitfalls and blah, blah, blah. I think, I was listening to Johnny Bench. The great Johnny Bench was on with Dan Patrick today, and Johnny said if Pete had shot somebody, people would have forgiven him. And Johnny said, look, Pete and I disagreed on this, and Pete, the way he handled it wasn't the best. How you try and make amends matters in the forgiveness thing. And how Pete Rose went about it. But that, I think that there needs to be a separation here at the same time, especially now that he's passed, about separating art from artist. Because the art that Pete Rose provided, like, Don, over 4,000 hits. I think it was something like 13 years of 190 plus knocks. Like that, I was having this conversation with a couple of buddies watching the football games last night.
Yeah.
I'm like, of all the records that will not be broken, this is right there, because there's no way that somebody's going to play 25 years anymore and play every day. So for Pete Rose, it was about winning and it was about producing, and he had his demons. Just like everybody's got their demons. The demon he had was gambling, and it went too far.
Is Roger Maris in Cooperstown? I don't think he is, or is he? Roger Maris? I had a brain fart. I had a brain fart.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, I'm not going to agree with you on the steroid wing, but they were great players, but I just can't. Rose should be steroid guys. I can't swallow it. Speaking of not swallowing something, the Blue Jays right now, one of the worst 74 and 88 records in their history, really. What did they fire? Who? They fired a coach yesterday. Was it the hitting coach?
The hitting coach.
So. Hitting coach got
one of like an assistant pitching coach today, and Gil Kim was like a bench guy. They're putting Band-Aids on wounds over there, Don.
Well, I'll tell you what. People are afraid of Edward Rogers owning every friggin' professional sports team in Toronto because of what's going on with the Blue Jays and Shapiro and Atkins seeming to get lifetime contracts by Edward Rogers for a franchise that just goes in circles. I mean, should people be, A, afraid of him owning all the Toronto teams, and B, why can't he see that Ross Atkins can't get the job done? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I get Shapiro's going to try to protect him. He's his buddy, and he makes great, renovations to a stadium. But I'm puzzled.
Well, let me even rewind a little further than your question. You said they go in circles. I disagree there. They're going backwards. They're going downwards. Because think about the trajectory of the franchise over the last 5-6 years. In 2019, it was a full rebuild. They called up all the kids. They lost 97 games, but you knew they were headed somewhere. Right, and then 2020, they get into the playoffs. 21, they miss on the last day of the season. In 22, they lead 8-1 on the Mariners in that wild card game and blow it. Now, that was the day, Don, that this whole thing started to fall apart, because that's when they made some panic moves. That's when they made some rash moves that did not need to happen. You trade Teoscar Hernandez for a mediocre reliever in Eric Swanson. Eric Swanson this year got sent down to AAA. Teoscar hit a career-high 33 home runs. What did the Blue Jays miss in their lineup this year? A power bat who was going to bring a thump. That was Teoscar. They gave him away. Last year, they get to the playoffs. The debacle with Jose Barrios and pulling him the way they did. And what they do afterwards?
Debacle, for sure.
They started pointing fingers, and a roster that couldn't hit, they replaced Whit Merrifield with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and replaced Matt Chapman with Justin Turner. Justin Turner, who was 29 10 years ago, and they expected everybody to just improve internally, and now they have, as you mentioned, one of the worst seasons in their history. They are not going in circles. They are not treading water. They are drowning. They're drowning, and they're just reshuffling some deck chairs on the bench that really won't change anything. I don't have an answer for you. It's baffling here in Toronto. And I'm going to tell you, Don, they've been packed houses the last 2 years, the novelty of the new stadium, etc. Those were a lot of tickets that were bought in the off-season, the winter, that people had. They planned trips, whatever. It's going to be hard to sell tickets this winter for the Toronto Blue Jays.
And the icing on the cake is John Schneider looks like he's returning as manager. The icing on the cake.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't, honestly, I don't know how much of this is Schneider's fault. Look at the team they've given him.
I know.
He made an interesting point the other day. He said their brutal, he didn't say brutal, but their bullpen cost them 10 wins. And he's probably on to something there. Injuries are injuries, and they're all part of it. But I just think the team they gave him wasn't very good. I don't know who the best manager in baseball is. If you put AJ Hinch in that role, how many more games would AJ Hinch have won with that team? I don't know.
Well, I mean, what's the good news that can happen over the offseason? Would it be Vladdy, or what can happen that's good news for the Blue Jays?
Yeah, look, I think, as I mentioned, they need a big bat to add to the lineup. They definitely need a better bullpen. And they have to put a major contract in front of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And Don, I'm wondering, does that number start with a 4, as in $400-ish million to keep Vlad around? Look, he's 25 years old. He is just scratching the surface. I know it feels like he's been around for a while. He has. He was called up when he was 19. This guy's a megastar. He's all of it. He's also the face of your franchise, and he's also going to be the one who's going to be selling tickets for you. So that has to happen. I'm intrigued to see if they do it. I really, really, really am.
I think, they have to, because as you said, the last 2 years, a lot of tickets sold last winter. The last 2 years, one big reno followed by another big reno the next year. A lot of people, and it's beautiful. It's a great facility. A lot of people loving that and going to the games. But to keep them going, I don't think that they cannot not sign Vladdy, can they? They have to. Yeah,
they have to. Yeah, and this is not hyperbole when I say this, like, it's a must. It's a must, because here's the thing. If you don't re-up Guerrero after all of this, after these last 5 years, what are you possibly selling to your fan base?
I don't know. That's it. Meat and potatoes. That's what you're selling. Like, I know you've likely been on this show already talking about Rogers taking over Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. So that's old. I realize that's old news, but do you have concerns about one owner for I mean, Toronto's a world-class city. It's it'd be in the top 10 in U.S. television markets, I believe. Certainly, it deserves some great sports teams for sure. But are you concerned, number one, about one owner? And if the owner's not very good, what's going to happen? And number two, do you think Rogers will go hard after an NFL franchise?
I don't think the NFL franchise is going to happen, Don, because just the economics of it. The Denver Broncos just sold for over $6 billion US. So you'd have to think that either an expansion or a relocation fee is around that number. Plus, you got to build a stadium.
And buy the land, build a stadium, right?
All those things. So you're looking at, they just bought 37.5%, another 37.5% of an NBA team, an NHL team, an MLS team, a CFL team, plus a bunch of land, plus a bunch of real estate, control of stadiums, etc. They bought that for 4.9 million Canadian. We're talking from an NFL standpoint at over 10 billion US.
Right.
So I just don't know who's got that kind of stomach and who's got that kind of cake to do it. Plus, how long is it going to take you to build that stadium? And honestly, living here, I don't know where you'd put it unless it's way out in the suburbs, and then that just kind of loses the Toronto feel to it. So I just think I honestly believe this. I think the NFL thing is a pipe dream. I really do. I don't think it's going to happen. I've thought that for a few years now. What I'd say about ownership is this. What you want your owner to do, regardless of sport, is to spend money. And the Blue Jays now are like a top 7 payroll team. The Maple Leafs always spend to the cap and really over the cap because they hide guys and put them on long-term injured reserve.
Yeah.
The Raptors won a championship 5 years ago, and they showed that they were willing to spend. So it's not that it's a new owner coming in. What you have is an incumbent that has shown they're willing to spend. I can't imagine that changing, because what I think is going to end up happening is, here's the thing, Don. They're charging $18, $19 for a beer, $9.50 for a soft drink. They want people in that stadium. They want people in those arenas. The ticket prices are among the highest in pro sports, after LA and New York. So I just think that they're willing to spend to get people into the building. So I don't know. I guess time will tell, right? We'll see how this all shakes down. But I'd certainly prefer this than having Jerry Jones as my owner, I'll tell you that much.
Well, Edward Rogers will be one of the biggest sports owners in the entire world, which is interesting. I want to just go back to baseball, stick with baseball for a minute. Were you as sad as I was when the A's played their last game in Oakland and were waving goodbye to the fans? Were you sad?
I was. The history of the team is part of it. The other thing, Don, is I covered a postseason game there, Oakland versus Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
It was a wild card game. It was on a beautiful Bay Area October afternoon. And my cameraman and I arrived. I'm getting chills just thinking about this. I think it was like a 5 o'clock local game. We arrived at 1 in the afternoon, and the parking lot was rocking on a weekday.
Yeah.
And there was such a connection between the team and the fans. And now imagine you live in Oakland. In the last 5 years, the Raiders have moved to Vegas. Your baseball team's moving to a AAA stadium for the next 3 years and then going on to Vegas. And your basketball team, the Golden State Warriors, are across the bay in San Francisco and fancy new digs. You just went from 3 franchises in the same complex, the same parking lot. They literally were connected by a tunnel to zero. To zero. So, man, and you know what else I did, Don? I mean, not to age myself too much, but I was a big Montreal Expos fan. It brought back a lot of PTSD about the end of the Expos 20 years ago.
Speaking of the Expos, is there any hope someday that Bronfman, I mean, he's rattled some cages. They tried to, but then Tampa Bay's now building a new stadium. Is there any possibility that he's got enough wherewithal or interest, or something's going to happen to get the Expos back? I'm not seeing it at the moment, Arash.
I think he's shown the wherewithal and the interest, and they were trying to get something done with Tampa, and then when push came to shove, the Rays owner showed his true colors. It's 2 things. One, Olympic Stadium literally can't go anywhere. It would cost not only upwards of $7 billion to implode that thing. The problem is it's on the subway line and it's so close to residential areas, it would take something like 3 years to actually destroy it. And you'd have to shut down Sherbrooke Street, which is the main artery through there. So the Expos is almost the same conversation we were having about the NFL to Toronto. It's not going to be $10 billion, but you have to build a new ballpark. You need to get yourself a team. And I just don't think there's any appetite from Major League Baseball to do it. I really don't.
Well, they're so screwed that they had to pay millions to fix the Olympic Stadium roof. I mean, like, people going, where's my tax dollar going? What's happening with the stadium and fixing the roof and nobody's there?
No, but Don, and they're doing it again. Like I was just working in Montreal, the President's Cup this weekend. Yeah. They're about to spend another billion with a B.
This is new.
Another $1 billion to repair the roof.
Oh my goodness! And we wonder why taxes are so high in Quebec.
There you go.
The Montreal Canadiens have enough problems with with how much tax they have to pay their hockey players. But anyway, one last thing, Arash, really briefly, was I thought last night that series with 2 teams trying to stay in the playoffs and one team sitting at home wondering whether they're going to stick in, I think that was really good for baseball last night. What do you think?
It was good. It was good entertainment. It was good theater. Here's what hit me, though, Don. I think October baseball is electric and exciting and all those things. Mm-hmm. What I think I've realized more than ever is how regional baseball is. Yes. Yeah. When the Jays aren't a factor, I just think that, I really wonder how many Canadians are going to be watching the postseason. Yeah, how many are going to be watching the divisional series, the ALCS, the NLCS? Does it move the needle now, even though it's playoffs, even though it's drama, even though it's all those things? Mm-hmm. I just don't think that it has the same cachet when the team you're following isn't in it, because you've just kind of tuned out of baseball.
Right. And that's why the teams have to do well with their regional television rights, etc., versus a national deal. Because it's so regional. I mean, look what the Dodgers get for regional television. That's why they're spending like they can. And what are the Pittsburgh Pirates getting for regional television? Not much, really, in the scheme of things. So I guess the rich get richer in part because how the regional and tied in with the broadcasting revenues work.
Yeah, really? No, that's a big part of it. The have and a have-not world when it comes to baseball.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us, Arash. Always interesting. We really enjoyed it. And wherever you're going, have a safe drive and have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Great to see you, Don.
You bet. Sportscage continues in just a moment.
The all-new Sports Cage and Coast to Coast with Arash Madani is brought to you by Smart Investing Solutions. Be smart with your money. Call Brian Golly at Smart Investing Solutions, 546-2533.
620 CKRM is your home to country's greatest hits and the 90s at 9. 1 full hour featuring the biggest hits of the 90s. Garth, Reba, Alan, Shania, George, and so much more. No cassette tape or CDs required, and 90s mullets are optional. 90s at 9 for the town of Wolseley and the voice of Saskatchewan. 620 CKRM.
The all-new Sports Cage is brought to you by Bronco Plumbing and Heating, where professional service is guaranteed. They'll treat you right. 781-2090.
Water heater and water softener rentals are now available at Bronco Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Instead of paying big money up front, you can rent a water heater and water softener directly from Bronco without the worry or hassle. They have a long history of renting water heaters and water softeners, and they're maintenance-free. Bronco comes and does all that for you. Saskatchewan's best water heater rentals are from Bronco. Call 306-781-2090. Professional, courteous service. BroncoPlumbing.com.
Sask Lotteries has 50 years of winning behind us. And you know what that means? Lots of winning numbers. Numbers like over 1,200 organizations funded and 12,000 plus groups supported. $6 million given away annually in community grants. And the winningest number of all? $1.4 billion given back to the people of Saskatchewan through sport, culture, and recreation. And we're just getting started. Help us grow the next 50. Learn more at sasklotteries.ca.
The luxury of Mercedes-Benz has never been more within reach with the fall demo event at Mercedes-Benz Regina. Save up to $32,000 on select models like the luxurious EQE 350. Get the premium performance and elegance Mercedes-Benz is known for, but with unmatched value when you choose certified pre-owned. Take advantage of the opportunity to experience the Mercedes-Benz you've always dreamed of, without compromise. Book your test drive at Mercedes-Benz Regina.
When it comes to duct cleaning, call Bronco Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. They'll clean out the dust and debris that builds up over the summer. When you need protection, they offer a monthly plan for homeowners to get regular service done on their AC and furnace, as well as plumbing. And when it comes to furnace servicing, it's never too early to get that done too. Bronco will service your furnace and have you ready to go before winter hits. Consider it today, so you can rest easy tomorrow. Learn more at broncoplumbing.com.
Hun, I'm starving. What do we have to eat?
Avoid the annoyed.
Western pizza.
I really don't feel like cooking today.
Avoid the annoyed.
Western pizza.
I want lasagna.
I was thinking Caesar salad and garlic bread.
I had my heart set on chicken wings.
Avoid the annoyed.
Western pizza.
Avoid the annoyed with Western Pizza. Big on toppings, big on taste. Dine in or take out. Order today.
Western pizza.
Hey Rider Nation, this is Dave Thomas, voice of your Saskatchewan Roughriders. Listen to this. How does a 50-50 payday sound? Sounds like a win to me. Huddle up to riders5050.ca and you can purchase 50-50 tickets for every Rider game, home or away. You can even score quickly with the early bird prize. This week it's a road trip to Edmonton to see the Oilers. And you'll be in for the massive weekly jackpots. Buy now at riders5050.ca and support amateur football in Saskatchewan. Sponsored by ISC. License LR 2426.
The all-new Sports Cage continues. You can watch our live stream at sportscage.com and always on the radio. Saskatchewan's voice for local sports, 620 CKRM.
And it's Don Hewitt back with Sports Cage. Texas, not Texas, the state, text us on the Capital Ford Lincoln text line. I've got a little bit of, tickle in my throat, plus I can't enunciate. Anyway, text us on the Capital Ford Lincoln text line, 306-936-6262. And don't forget, the all-new Sports Cage is proud to bring you another season of Regina Rams football. The Rams are at home on Saturday to take on the Calgary Dinos at Mosaic Stadium. Brendan McGuire will have the pregame show at 1:45 and play-by-play at 2 on 620 CKRM.com. There he is in Winnipeg last Saturday. He couldn't stand up in the radio facility because he hit his head on that little glass door at the top. And that's because Mosaic Stadium is just 500 times better than Princess Auto Stadium in Winnipeg. And that's the point of that picture. Brendan's a handsome man. He's with John Hodge of Third Down Nation behind him. He's a handsome man. But the point is, he couldn't fit in that rinky-dink little studio in Princess Auto Stadium. And it's just huge. It's a huge booth at Mosaic Stadium. Anyway, for the latest on the Rams, you can stay up to date at sportscage.com. Jason Mannity, the host of getfishing.ca, and the man that knows more about fishing than anybody else I'll ever know in my lifetime, and I don't know anybody else that fishes, but he's certainly the kingpin. You go fishing with Jason Mannity, it's really like a biology class in grade 12, and I didn't do well in high school biology, but I'm listening to Jason, and same result. I don't get most of it, but anyway, he's with us on the all new Cajun. Jason, I wanted to ask you the first question: how does a Saskatchewan lake change as we go into fall? How does that change then affect the fish?
Well, Don, thank you for that wonderful intro. By the way, your check will be in the mail. I was going to say that what really is interesting at this time of year is we've had months and months and months of a slow warm up of our lakes. Where in the spring they're about 4 degrees. The ice goes off, and then slowly over time, the shallows warm up first, the weed growth begins, the food chain starts, and as the summer progresses, the water gets, I don't want to say hot, but from a certain fish perspective, it gets very, very warm. Like big pike, big walleyes, and the food they feed on tend to go deeper. Now, what happens is that you get this warm water layer in a lake that slowly descends and pushes downward, and there's a cool water layer below that. And the delineating feature between the two is called a thermocline. Eventually, Mother Nature says, okay, I got to restore the equilibrium of the lake before the ice comes on, because that cold water layer is an area that's low on oxygen, partly because we've got lots of algae in southern Saskatchewan and different places, and as that algae dies, it uses up the oxygen below there. And plus, it's deep enough in some of our lakes that wind and wave action can't really influence it. So what happens is we get a cold day like we had this week, Monday, with strong winds, 13 degrees. We get a few of those flirting with 0 degrees. All of a sudden, you've got a cold water layer, warm water layer, cold water layer, and that cold water layer sinks, and it literally snaps like an elastic band and mixes the whole lake up back to 3 or 4 degrees. Now, when that happens, and again, it has to happen because it restores oxygen and uniform temperature throughout the lake, the fish go into a little bit of a shock, because what they've been used to for those warm water layers, warmer water that made them active all summer to eat because their metabolism was high, now all of a sudden they're like, whoa, what was that? So they can be anywhere in the lake. Where you have this traditional pattern where they were maybe hanging out in 25 feet, catching lots of walleyes, that invisible, elastic band snaps and the water's all the same temperature, the fish kind of snap and go everywhere too, until they settle in when a few late fall winter patterns settle in.
Now, I mean, that's interesting with the elastic band snapping. We're going to be looking at some video of you very shortly catching some fish Curtis Gammon found. But does this phenomenon occur like in a shallow lake? Is it, where it's the temperature difference isn't as much?
Well, the thing is, if we use a lake like a Buffalo Pound, for example, or Regina Moose Jaw Water, great fishery, by the way. And river systems like the North and South Saskatchewan, they tend not to stratify because the water's flowing all the time. They're shallower. And honestly, on Buffalo Pound, if you have a 60 to 80K wind like we've had in the last few days, that'll mix the entire lake. So stratification really isn't a big deal there. The water's kind of a uniform temperature. But in your last mountains, your Lake Diefenbakers, your Tobins, even the Qu'Appelle lakes that are deep enough, you will get that stratification. And what the interesting thing is, Don, when that water turns to the same temperature, now all of a sudden the shore angler can get some real cool success from shore, because what happens is some bait fish that your big walleye and pike feed on, ciscos primarily are the ones that come in shallow to spawn, but they don't come in until the water cools off because they're cool water fish. But guess what's right on their tail, literally, Don, are those 10-pound walleyes and those 20-pound pike. They're totally chasing them into the shallows, and the shore angler now has an opportunity to catch a trophy fish from shore once we start getting those near zero temperatures at night.
So with this phenomenon along the shore, I mean, do you need a boat to fish once this transition occurs? Do you even need a boat, or can you just cast off the shore?
Well, you know what? If you have a boat, you can kind of cover more area, a little bit deeper out. Obviously, if they're on their way into the shallows. But if you don't have a boat, this is the time. Like usually in the spring is the best shore fishing opportunities because the fish are shallow. They're hanging out in the warmer as the water's warming. But the opposite's kind of true in the winter. They know winter's coming. They know it's an easy meal of these ciscos and other bait fish coming into the shallows. They want to feed up before things get cold and the ice comes on. So if you got a boat, use it, but you don't need to have it. And I'm glad you brought that up, because the other thing is there are a few safety things to keep in mind at this time of year too. As the water gets colder.
Now, if you don't find them in the shallows, and the lake is finished its transition, then where do you find them at that point?
Well, what tends to happen is these bait fish called the ciscos that are, if you will, the filet mignon of the fish world. These are the bait fish that big walleyes and big pike and even lake trout, when you get further north, really prefer. Once they're done, they're spawning, they start heading out a little bit deeper. And they're kind of hanging out in those first drop-offs where you kind of go into maybe 15, 20 feet into the basin area off the end of points and that type of thing. And, of course, the big fish will follow them out there. So you're looking at those first major drop-offs. When you're going out, you walk off a beach, for example, and it's like you walk, and then nothing. Then all of a sudden it starts descending quite quickly. It's usually right at the edge of those transition points where the water starts to drop quite significantly is where you're going to find them. And the cool thing is, if you can get out even in a boat and find those fish on those transitions just before freeze up, you're going to come out with your ice auger and you're going to find them right there in those locations. They don't move far when the ice comes on.
That's interesting. Somebody asked me, why do you have fishing on Sportscage? And the reason is because so many people fish in Saskatchewan, and there's a ton of folk that are interested in this information. And I was appalled when I was told, why would you have fishing on Sportscage? Because everybody's interested in it. Well, not everybody, but more people than you think fish, do they not, Jason, in Saskatchewan?
Oh, 100%. We've got literally hundreds of thousands of anglers in this province, contributing millions to the local economy when you go fishing. So, I mean, there's a good reason to pay attention there. But the other thing is, Don, anybody can do it. You don't have to be an elite athlete. And I'll tell you, for things like mental health, it is huge for any one of us to get out there and enjoy the great outdoors. Put the phone down, get your nose out of your iPad or whatever it is, and get out there and really enjoy it. I know that I always feel great getting out there and on the way back. And boy, you're going to have the best sleep of your life if you get 8 hours of fresh air.
Oh, you can't beat nature. It soothes the soul. And even in the days when you can ice fish outside in the winter because you're young enough to withstand the cold, which I am not anymore, and I need a shack with a television and everything else. But even when you do something like that, I mean, you're right. It's like I don't know, there's a peacefulness about it that you really can't describe. But there's not peacefulness under the water, because we always see these films of how cruel nature is on land. And there we are in the video there, Jason, doing some ice fishing, doing a good job as usual. And out he comes out of the hole. Jason's holes, so that when he uses his auger, are perfect. They're perfectly circular. And look at that fish that Jason's got there. But anyway, where am I? I digress. But It's violent under there, isn't it, Jason? Just like nature is on land.
Oh, it's a fish eat fish world, Don. I mean, it is war under there, and it's even amongst the same species. They will catch. A fish will spawn, and it's interesting with pike and especially there'll be 2 or 3 really small male pike. The females tend to be the bigger ones of that particular species, and they're there to get the job done that Mother Nature intended. She lays her eggs. They fertilize the eggs. But those little males have to get their heads right, because the big girl is going to go, we're done, and if you don't get out of here, you're lunch. So that's the scenario that we're dealing with for some of these species. But I did want to quickly talk about at this time of year when it's starting to get colder. And if you are shore fishing, or if you're in a chest waders or even in your boat, things can change quickly. That water's going to get real cold, and you want to make sure you always have your life jacket on. Get one of those life vests. You can find them online. They're really easy. And you want to have that thing on you, because if you go over and you end up in the water, you have limited time. I'm talking seconds to get out of that water, because hypothermia can set in so quickly. So it's really important that you think safety at this time of year as well. And because the types of winds we get, especially in southern Saskatchewan, that could literally blow up out of nowhere, you want to be careful of that at any time of the year. But if you're getting splashed and wet and stuff in the boat, it's going to be very uncomfortable and it can be dangerous if you're not prepared to head back to shore real quick and call your day early if the weather goes south on you.
That's for sure. Now, you married the perfect woman, the perfect wife, I'll tell you that right now, because she seems to be fine with all the time, hours upon hours that you spend fishing. So, A, I'll give you credit for that. But B, how did you acquire such a deep love of fishing yourself?
Well, I have to give my partner in crime, Jeff Matity with Matity's Get Fishing, the credit, because he was my older brother who took me under his wing. I mean, older brothers aren't always that way. Sometimes it can be competitive and that type of thing. Yeah. But he just instilled my love of it, and it was something we would do together. And we obviously made a bit of a business of it together, but I think part of it was he was probably in a situation where mom and dad are like, well, you can go, but you got to take your little brother, so that's probably where it started. And fortunately for both of us, we both really, really enjoyed it. I mean, he was there when I caught my very first walleye while squealing loudly, afraid of the fish, reeling it in from shore. And he was there to rescue me from it when I was little. And it's just been a lifelong passion for both of us. And the thing is, Don, like anything, we're obsessed with wanting to always learn more, learn how to catch more fish, understanding predator-prey relationships, like I was talking about before, with the suckers or the Ciscos and that type of thing, and knowing what lures to use. I mean, I brought a few different ones with me for those of us who are watching on video. I know we've got a lot of radio listeners, but think big. Like, I've got this crankbait. This is one of our favorites, the Rapala Husky Jerk. Huge. This thing's huge, and at this time of year, if you want to catch huge fish, you got to use huge baits. I mean, this is the size of a smaller Cisco, those bait fish that we're talking about. And the cool thing is, when you use bigger baits, sometimes you feel a little tappity tap when you're fishing like a minnow or a leech or something in the summer. Use those bigger baits; those fish just wham hit it so hard they almost rip the rod out of your hand. And it's very exciting. It's a ton of fun, to try to get out there, as I say, before the ice comes on and enjoy some fun fall fishing. And now's the time to get out there. Great chance from shore too, and from a boat if you have it.
Right. Now I'm going to do a segue now. I'm going to read a segue because I'm going to read a Rough Rider segue. And then after this, because Jason Matity is a diehard Rough Rider fan, we're going to talk a little football. So here goes my segue. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are on the road Saturday in Edmonton to play the Elks, Jason, as you well know. The Croft Electric countdown to kickoff with Justin Duncan, West Kate starts at 2 p.m. CKRM only. The Rider Nation pregame show with Dave Thomas and Luke Mullender goes at 4, kickoff is at 5. Of course, that's the full radio network. And as always, you get to have your say on the Rider Nation Radio Roundtable post-game show with Justin and West, also on the network, immediately following the game. So, Jason, you and I text constantly about the Roughriders.
We do. We really do. And I appreciate you putting up with my text.
People should know that after a loss, I get 32 texts from Jason Matterdy. After the Riders win, I get about 1 text. But anyway, and I think that's normal for a lot of fans to be.
I got to work on that. I'm in
honest
counseling
with you.
for it, just so you know.
But I was looking at the Rough Rider, injury list on the 6th game, and of course Bain Jr.'s hurt, as is Armstead. Maybe they're going on the 6th game and are added to these names. But listen to this, just for a little dramatic effect, that the Rough Riders right now in 2nd place in the West. But look who's on the 6-game list. Ajo, Christian Albright, Philip Blake, Malik Carney, Charbel DeBeer, Zach Fry, Peter Godber, Jermarcus Hardrick, both Herman Reed twins, Jordan and Justin, Dante Myers, AJ Ouellette, Mitch Picton, CJ Rivas, Ryan Skeevier, Malik Straker, and Nick Weeb. Plus, there's a couple of players on the 1-game list. Frankie Hickson being one of them, and I think Cox Jr. is the other, I think. Anyway, I'm looking at this because last week all we talked about was how injured Ottawa was, and I thought, wait a minute, look at Saskatchewan's 6-game list. And I looked at this list, Jason, and I see a lot of good football players. In fact, there's not one on this list who I wouldn't consider a decent football player. I know this has happened to Saskatchewan the 2 previous seasons too. But, I honestly will say this. I think it's very impressive that the Rough Riders are 1 point ahead of BC and in 2nd place when you take a look at all these players on the 6-game injury list. Don't you think?
Well, I think just let's pick the positions, like the offensive line this year. When you think of how they've been the most decimated, I don't even know what number of O-linemen we're on now, with all-stars that aren't even playing. To me, that has been the most amazing part of this team. Like, they have continued to give us a chance on offense, which is something we haven't had the last 2 years. It's been very clear that's been a severe weak point, even when the starters were in. So I think both the coaches and the recruiting have done really well there for starters. And I agree, they have done well, and I think that's partly why we saw a 5-1 start and a complete tail off until the last couple of games.
Right,
so yeah, I agree. It has been impressive, but I think those things have a way of catching up to you, especially since we lost, both Armstead and Bain Jr. on Saturday. So if the next question is how are they going to do on Saturday, all I can say is they're in tough. They're really in tough against a team that ran all over them when they played them in August.
Well, I think Keith Willoughby is coming up at 5:30 with his analytics. I think his analytic computers have Edmonton winning by 1 point. I believe Saskatchewan, though, they will clinch a playoff spot if they win in Edmonton. So that would be wonderful because then they're just jockeying with BC and don't have to worry about making the playoffs. But I still think it's when basically Craig Reynolds rehired Jeremy O'Day and gave him that contract at the end of the 2023 season, he said the reason was he felt he was bringing in good players and they had so many injuries and they felt the biggest problem was the coaching staff. And so I think they've been proven right, about the coaching staff because they've stayed competitive and they're playing well generally with this enormous amount of injuries. I don't know when the Riders are going to get better luck with injury, but if you actually had the majority of these players on the 6-game list, they'd be toe-to-toe with Winnipeg, if not ahead of them I believe. I mean, am I too optimistic about that, or what's your opinion?
I mean, let's be honest. We're all depressed Winnipeg's doing so good now. Like that is a gut punch that anybody in this province was. I was hoping for 0-6 and everybody gets fired. That's what I was hoping for in Winnipeg.
There's the standings. Yep.
Winnipeg is. I'll tell you what Winnipeg doesn't do for the most part is they tend not to suplex guys with a second left in a game. Although Adam Bighill did take a dirty shot on our quarterback when we beat them. So they're not immune from that.
Yeah.
But they're disciplined. And they don't make a lot of mistakes, and they execute. And that's why they're going to be really, really hard for either by BC or Saskatchewan, should they get second and third to beat, to make it to the Grey Cup for that reason alone. Plus, they're at home and their fans are rabid. So that's
all right.
The Riders, players aside, if they don't clean up some of that stuff, even if they do make the playoffs, it's going to be a quick showing. And that is coaching.
Well, I don't know who's the commentary of yours on fishing or the commentary of yours on football. Which was better? It was pretty good.
Well, I'll tell you which one gets my heart rate up more.
Curtis, what do you think? Pretty good football commentary by the fisherman? Colson's giving you a thumbs up for your football commentary.
Very good, very good.
There you go. That's Curtis. Curtis Gammon.
Thank you very much.
Thought you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, Jason,
I
thanks
find
for joining
fishing
us.
a little more relaxing. There you go.
That's true. Colson, tell us about this contest again. Thanks, Jason. See you later.
Thank you.
Pick the score you're talking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, we've had a few people text in, but you can still text in until the end of the show. We're playing Pick the Score that would be this Saturday's game in Edmonton. You're going to send in your score, who you think is going to win, your name and your phone number, and we'll pick one of the texters at random. Mm-hmm. Whoever we pick gets a pair of tickets to the next game, which is when BC is in town. Text in your name, number, who you think is going to win, and we might pick you.
Right, and don't forget the all-new Sportscage is proud to bring you another season of Regina Pats hockey. Just listened to Dante DeCaria a little while ago. The Pats are home to the Edmonton Oil Kings Sunday at the Brand Center. Dante will have the pregame show Sunday starting at 5:30 and the play-by-play at 6. And don't forget, for the latest on the Pats, you can stay up to date at sportscage.com. Now, tomorrow, Barney's back in the big chair with Double Talk. Of course, Darian Drant, two-time Grey Cup champion, a Rough Rider legend, will be talking with Barney tomorrow on the cage. Sports Cage continues in just a moment.
Jagmeet Singh and the NDP are keeping Justin Trudeau in power. And that's a bad deal for Saskatchewan. They keep raising the carbon tax. They want to shut down our power generation and our oil and gas industry. They keep driving up prices and killing jobs. And the worst thing is, Saskatchewan's NDP still supports Singh. We can't afford the NDP in Ottawa or here. The NDP, they're a bad deal for Saskatchewan. Authorized by the Chief Official Agent for the Saskatchewan Party.
So, how big is yours?
5 inches.
That's about average. How'd you like 6 inches?
6 inches?
6 inches? That would be a big improvement.
A 6-inch package from Prairie 6-inch eaves trough is made specifically for your farm building. 6-inch eaves troughs are more durable and efficient during storms. They're family owned and operated, so you'll get an honest installation at a fair price. Prairie 6-inch eaves trough, your farm shop specialist. Call 570-6415.
Hello there, this is George Leith, Managing Partner at Harvard Media. I'm proud to announce that SaskToday.ca is now under local Saskatchewan ownership. Sask Today's team of local journalists are on the ground in communities across the province. We focus on local topics that matter to you: community news, agriculture, business commentary, local sports in our all-new Sports Cage, and more. Visit and bookmark SaskToday.ca and sign up for our daily news digest. SaskToday.ca, from Harvard Media, everywhere.
Country Corner, brought to you by Municipal Hail Insurance. Proudly serving farmers. MunicipalHail.ca.
620 CKRM proudly supports Sawyer Brown and Shenandoah, October 26th at the Moose Jaw Event Center. Special guest George Fox. Take in a great night of country music by getting your tickets at sasktix.ca. Bring back your most loved holiday memories with Rory Allen's classic Elvis Christmas show. 3 nights, December 20th, 21st, and 22nd at the Casino Regina Show Lounge. Tickets are on sale now at the box office or casinoregina.com. And spend your Saturdays with the Symphony. The Regina Symphony Orchestra season is underway. Check out the full schedule at reginasymphony.com.
For more information, visit 620ckrm.com.
Good afternoon. It's mostly cloudy and it's 15 degrees in Regina. I'm Corey Atkinson from the Harvard Media News Center with 620 CKRM News for Echo Sound and Fort Qu'Appelle. Stay connected with a new cell phone from Echo Sound. Call 306-332-6711 and for Kevin's Marine. The Regina Police Service is currently on the scene of a motor vehicle incident involving a pedestrian at the intersection of Dudney Avenue and Louvain Drive. North, west, and eastbound traffic on Dudney was affected. They're asking the public to avoid the area or find an alternate route. The Regina Police Service is thanking the public and the media for their attention in this matter. The NDP launched their campaign in Regina this morning. NDP leader Carla Beck says Scott Moe and the Sask Party have taken Saskatchewan backward, not forward. Beck says Saskatchewan is now last in education, last in healthcare, and second to last in the country when it comes to the economy. Beck says it doesn't have to be this way.
Ours is a province full of opportunity. And while Scott Moe is focused on division and distracting from his own record, it's that opportunity and that hope for a better future that we are focused.
The NDP have said that they will freeze the 15 cents per litre provincial gas tax for 6 months within hours of taking office. They also promised to take the provincial sales tax off of children's clothes and groceries. Meanwhile, incumbent Premier Scott Moe says his party will keep the economy strong and build more schools and hospitals.
We have a plan for a strong economy and a plan for a brighter future. And that plan starts with keeping life more affordable for all who live here.
Moe also says the Saskatchewan Party government will make life more affordable through the largest income tax reduction since 2008. Voters in Saskatchewan will hit the polls on October 28th. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's office says her recent comment about chemtrails doesn't mean she believes the United States government is spraying them in the province. Spokeswoman Savannah Johansson says Smith was simply sharing what she has heard from Albertans. Smith has come under criticism after she spoke about chemtrails at a weekend United Conservative Party town hall. The Premier said that she has not found evidence that chemtrails are being sprayed over Edmonton, but someone told her it's happening. It's being done by the U.S. Department of Defense. Smith told the audience if it is the U.S., her powers as Premier of Alberta to stop it are limited. And Tim Walz and J.D. Vance will meet for the first time and possibly only U.S. vice presidential debate tonight. Reporter Mary Alice Parks explains that what they have to say will likely do little to sway or influence voters.
I think if someone is truly disastrous, it could matter. I mean, these are long-standing seasoned politicians. I don't think one of these guys is going to fall apart. But if someone says something truly offensive, truly outlandish, truly memorable, I think that could make a difference.
The 90-minute debate from Manhattan starts at 9 p.m. Eastern on CBS. That's your 620 CKRM News. Read more stories from around your community and around the province at sasktoday.ca and 620ckrm.com. Weather is next.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when... Uh-oh.
There are some things that can get spoiled. A sunny day, maybe.
Aw, and no umbrella or anything.
And then there's Echo Sound, your SaskTel authorized dealer, where they have all the top-of-the-line smartphones with all the latest features. With such a wide selection and so many great plans, nothing can spoil it.
Yay, rain!
Echo Sound, your SaskTel authorized dealer in Fort Qu'Appelle. EchoSound.ca.
When you have a big job on the go, always head to Prairieland Rental for everything from skid steers to excavators to jackhammers. You'll get everything done with equipment just from Prairieland. You won't need to go anywhere else. And at Prairieland, you deal directly with the owner. They're very local and very Sask. They appreciate your local business and they've got everything you need for your projects. They'll even deliver. Prairieland Rental, 600 Albert Street. PrairielandRental.com.
I'm Corey Atkinson with your 620 CKRM Precision Weather, brought to you by Line-X Regina. Serious protection, killer looks, 1865 McCarra Street, and for Matt's Furniture. Visit mattsfurniture.ca. Now here's Precision Weather meteorologist Steve Adamson.
The duration of the week looks to offer fairly seasonable temperatures for us, and we'll be dealing with some brisk winds through the majority of the week as well. Tonight, varying amounts of cloudiness, perhaps a few passing showers, a 40% chance, the low temperature near 6. Wednesday, a mixture of sunshine and cloud cover. Windy and cool, the high near 13. Winds will be gusting to around 50. Wednesday night, mainly clear with a diminishing breeze, the low temperature dropping to 1. And for Thursday, mostly sunny skies, cool and breezy, the high around 12. Temperatures will moderate a bit on Friday with the high going up to 19. It'll be mostly sunny. Saturday, windy and cooler with a mixture of sunshine and cloud cover, the high around 13. With your 620 CKRM weather forecast, I'm Precision Weather Meteorologist Steve Adamson.
Across the province at this hour, Saskatoon is 14, Swift Current 16, Assiniboia 18, Yorkton Melville 16, Moosomin Broadview 16, Estevan is 18, and Weyburn is 16. At this hour in Moose Jaw, it's mostly cloudy. Winds are from the southwest at 26, and it's 17 degrees. Regina is also mostly cloudy. Winds are from the northwest at 27, and it's 15 degrees. For more local news that matters to you, subscribe to the daily newsletter at sasktoday.ca.
He's at it again. Matt sharpening his pencil to save you big money at Matt's Furniture. From now until October 30th, save more with the Autumn Sweet Savings Event. Buy any 2 qualifying Whirlpool or Maytag kitchen appliances, like the Maytag Smart Electric Range with indoor grill, just $16.99, and save an extra $150. Buy 3 or more qualifying Whirlpool or Maytag appliances and save an extra $300. Matt's Furniture in Fort Capel, Kamsack, Melville, and Foam Lake, or online at mattsfurniture.ca.
When you want the best for your truck, you want Line-X. Your truck has withstood the harshest elements Saskatchewan has thrown at it. Rocks, gravel, rain, sleet, and snow, and left with no chips, no rust. Line-X protective coating keeps your truck's bed liners, rocker panels, and bumpers looking like brand new. Don't settle for Brand X. Go with Line-X. It's serious protection. Come see why everybody loves taking their truck to Line-X Regina for their rocker panels, bumpers, and more. Line-X. Make your truck complete. 1865 McCarra Street.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents the all-new Sports Cage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Kellen Solar. 35 years of experience moving water from a dugout or well without electricity. Visit KELLNsolar.com to find out more for your livestock operation. Be a part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The all-new Sports Cage. Streaming at sportscage.com and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
And it's Don Hewitt back with the all-new Sports Cage. Don't forget, Sports Cage is proud to support another season of Regina Thunder football. The Thunder are home to the Calgary Colts on Sunday to wrap up the regular season. Kickoff at Leibel Field, which is such a great facility. To watch a Thunder game is Sunday at 1 o'clock. And for details, please go to reginathunder.ca.
The all-new Sports Cage with CFL and Saskatchewan Roughrider legend Glenn Suter is brought to you by Quality Tire. With 9 locations across Saskatchewan, visit qualitytire.ca.
TSN's Glenn Suter now joined us on Sports Cage for his regular segment of press coverage. Now, Glenn, when you're doing a TSN broadcast, you have to wear makeup. You've probably got a production assistant that puts it on. I'm assuming TSN can afford that. But now that we're streaming on, you don't?
No.
You have to put on your own makeup?
Well, I used to worry about hamstring injuries and things like that. Now I just worry about, powdering and all of those things. It's weird, but you're not supposed to look shiny on the air. That's the problem.
Yeah. So, but you don't bother with the makeup on Sports Cage then?
Well, no, I haven't. In fact, it took me a while just to shave. So now at least I'm shaving. It's baby steps as we get used to the podcast formula here, and and being on the air, it's different.
Well, you're youthful looking. You're looking good, makeup or no makeup. I actually had a funny experience with a news director once who said, Don, you have to wear makeup. Start immediately. The next day, I didn't do it, and he saw me in the hallway and said, you looked a lot better today. So there you go. Now, I'm watching the game Saturday night. I'm old, so I'm trying to stay awake because Hamilton and BC going right down to the wire in overtime. It was such an exciting game. I want to ask you about Bo Levi Mitchell if you have time later, and what a season he has leading the CFL in passing yardage. And I hung in there because the game was so good. I hung in there before I went to bed, and then next thing you know, Glenn Suter's literally half a day later, he's in Regina doing the Rough Rider Ottawa game. And I thought, what the heck? Is TSN breaking labor laws with you, Glenn? Or how are they forcing you to with a schedule like that? What happened?
Well, I wasn't scheduled for the Rider game. The color analyst for that game was supposed to be Matt Dunnigan. But Matt lives in Florida. Yeah, Matt lives in Florida. And the hurricane had just hit land. And so there was some flight delays and flight issues. And then I think he got as far as Chicago, and then there was more flight issues because probably Chicago is such a hub and everyone was going from Florida to get out of Florida, probably going through Chicago, that he got stuck there. So I got the call about 10 minutes before I was leaving to the stadium in Vancouver to do that game. And I got the call saying, hey, can you go straight to the airport after the game and be on the 6 a.m. to get to Regina? And when you get in, you land at noon and the kickoff is at 1. Now, Don, you know when we do these games, for prep reasons and just to go through all the material and all the different storylines we're going to talk about and replays, that we get there about 2.5, 3 hours before kickoff. And I've done that my whole career in television. So to get there within an hour was tight, but then I was connecting through Calgary and that flight was delayed. And I was realizing that we were going to get to the stadium probably at about 20-1 for a 1:08 kickoff. And I was basically on the fly setting up, and it was hilarious because I had football fans in the Calgary airport, and I'm standing waiting for my connection, holding my charts up and doing the research with my iPad and my chart as I stand in line to get the next flight on. And people go, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting ready for another game." so it was a bit of an adventure. We got there about 20 minutes before kickoff, and I was on fumes because literally I had probably 2 hours, not even, probably an hour sleep total before that second game. But hey, we got it done, and the Riders got a big win, and they did one. Yeah, and what a pro you are, because you would never have known it. You were as sharp as ever on the broadcast. CFL takes so many knocks. Sometimes I get tired of it, really, because it's a great league and very entertaining league, as we see every single weekend. But I thought the CFL did an absolutely outstanding job on truth and reconciliation. The logos that they all had on their helmets. I love the theme of every child matters. I thought this was a shining moment for the CFL, Glenn, and what they did for this special day, a day that is the best thing that happened in Canada in a long time, that their day is being recognized now for this issue. Yeah, I agree. And you know how difficult, you've been around the league your whole life basically, and you know how difficult it is to get every single team on board at the same time. All the teams love the idea, all the teams want to participate, but then they have all the logistical issues of different times and start times, and they're doing, maybe they're doing breast cancer awareness that same weekend. And just to coordinate all of that as a league initiative is super difficult. Not because they don't want to, but because it's just logistically very difficult. But they did it. They pulled it off every game, and one other thing that people may not know is that for years now, and not necessarily this administration, but for years leading up, it's always been tough to communicate some of those initiatives and exactly what they're doing with television, because we're the avenue to the fan, and we need to know exactly what they're doing. But they did an excellent job this year, to your point, Don, of making us aware of every little detail, park to park, so that our panel and our guys in the booth could help to create that awareness.
Oh, it was wonderful to see this weekend. Now, getting sort of back to the football field, there's so many sort of gray areas in football rules. Money Hunter's hit on Sean Bain Jr., I can say I never saw you do a hit in your career like that, Glenn. It was a legal hit, yet it was, in my mind, a deliberate attempt to injure. And do you think the officials should be given discretion in this gray area if they feel there has been, and I thought there was, a deliberate attempt to injure?
Yeah, I think there should be. I really think there should be. And, I think for a long time we have said to officials, we want to eliminate the personal opinion. We want to eliminate their read on the situation or measuring the temperature of the moment. And that to me has been a mistake. That they need to have the ability to make a judgment call in moments like that. And again, when a receiver has the ball in his hand, there's not necessarily a rule broken when the DB goes low. But in that one, it looked like Hunter missed and then leaned into his legs to try and not look silly and get beat for a 80-yard touchdown throw. So yes, there was a deliberate move to the lower legs. I won't go as far as to say he deliberately tried to injure him. I'm not sure that was in his mind. You'd have to ask him for that. But, I think they should have the discretion. And I don't think we should try and eliminate discretion of the officials. What I would like to see is much less command center. But we can get to that. That's a completely different topic.
Everybody
because
agrees with that.
You can stay within the rules and yet do something on the field that you shouldn't. And I think that hit falls into that category.
I'm right with you there. Now, we both agree that the speed of the game in both the CFL and NFL is crazier than ever. It's so fast. I'm sure you'll admit that it's a lot faster than when you played. Every sport seems to, but these athletes are nuts in both the CFL and NFL. Now, that on that hit on Pimpleton that resulted in the Fields touchdown. Now, I believe that would have been a touchdown in the NFL. And why I think that is because it seems like NFL officials seem to react immediately to make the call on such a fast bang-bang play, where CFL refs seem to end up in some confusion when it happens really fast, and then there's delays. Would you agree with that? I mean, I don't know what you said on air about that Fields touchdown on that hit, but I thought NFL, that's a touchdown. CFL, it's not. What do you think of that?
Well, the big picture thought there is, going away from, each hit individually is, I think what happens in our league, which doesn't happen down south, is that the command center in real time has become part of the process. So, for instance, there was a play in the Rider game where we in the booth, and maybe fans did see it, but we didn't see any flag, and we didn't see a challenge from either coach. And then we saw the officials huddle, and then we saw an offensive pass interference call. Now, I'm not even sure. I can't even remember which team it was on, but it was an offensive pass interference call. And I thought, what just happened there? Because there was no challenge, and I didn't see a flag. And then they told us later that the command center was helping the on-field official distinguish between whether or not it was OPI. And in fact, the official on the field threw a flag, but we didn't see it because he picked it up and then he asked for advice or there was advice given from the command center. So what happens, even if it's offsides, where you see someone jump and you're not sure if it's offense or defense first, the command center will relay in real time to the official what they saw if they look at it back twice really quickly. Well, that could take 20 seconds. Now their mandate is to not take 20 seconds. If you're going to help in real time, do it immediately. But it still does, and they still meet. And, there was a mandate 2 or 3 weeks ago where the command center sent out memos to the entire league saying, we are going to stay out more. We are going to let you call the game. We're not going to be so intrusive. And this was an important, and this came on the heels of the Ottawa Rider game.
Yes.
When the command center after the fact came and was part of the outcome of that game.
Yeah.
So, and then it happened again in BC with the Hamilton game. In overtime, pass interference, the command center overturns a call. So, again, I've been for the command center on pass interference only because it's so punitive. It could be a 70-yard penalty. So I've always thought, let's get it right. But because of the inconsistency and the fact that they are literally starting to slow the game down, and they're making some mistakes as well. So basically, we're no longer going to the command center to get it right, that we say. We're now going to the command center for different looks, another opinion, which is the final call. And we hope that they get it right, but they're not getting it right every time. So if that's the case, let's let the officials call the game. Let's live with some human error like we do with players and coaches and broadcasters. And let's just enjoy the game in real time without a whole bunch of intrusion from Toronto in a little office with video cameras or video machines out there.
Yeah, great point, and well spoken on that. I agree. Now, going back to that Hamilton BC game, I mean, Nathan Rourke with the big contract, the highest paid player in the CFL. I'm watching that game, and we've seen it in games before since he's come back from the NFL. The ball is floating on him. It's going high. He's either throwing it over the heads or making the catches more difficult than it should be. So what do you think's going on with that? Because if you take a look at quarterbacks, I'm sure you'll agree that come directly from the NFL to the CFL, they always seem to struggle. Is there something about throwing the other football, the NFL football, or what's going on with Nathan Rourke that they're just sailing on him, just so almost in an upwards,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the mechanics of why he'd be missing that way. I do know that through personal experience throughout the years that players that have come back from their NFL tryouts, especially guys like Nathan, who, if given a real truthful opportunity to play in the NFL, he would have been in the Pro Bowl. And I'm just saying that he has that level of talent physically and mentally. So here's a guy that had to live with the politics of the NFL. Let's just put it that way. Yep. And I think these are all human beings that come back, whether it's a receiver, DB, linebacker, doesn't matter. You come back from an opportunity to make life-changing money for doing the exact same thing, basically, that you're doing up here, only with slightly different rules. But you're doing the same thing: throwing, catching, hitting, tackling, blocking, all of those things. So when you come back from the missed opportunity for whatever reason that you're not going to make hundreds of millions. Now, Nathan Rourke's going to do fine up here, but financially. But at the same time, there's a level of disappointment I think you've got to get through. Now, I'm not saying Nathan is struggling with moping around. He's not that type of guy. He's going to get in there and work at it, and I know his game will be back. I would suggest one other thing, though. Their offensive line is different now than it was 2 years ago, and I think a lot of those passes he's throwing, he's got a guy in his face, and that
I'd agree.
That can, that could be trouble for any quarterback.
Good point. Now, his brother Curtis has now led Indiana Hoosiers to a 5-0 record. That's Indiana's best record since 1967. I think he's a little bit bigger than his older brother, but is it fair to say that Curtis will definitely be the number one pick in the 2025 CFL draft, or will he get so good going on like he is with Indiana that teams will be afraid to pick him with the first pick because he's going to the NFL.
Well, that happens all the time. Yeah, and it's not just quarterback position, but it happens all the time where teams in the CFL wait till second or third round. However, his brother being up here and him through his brother learning about the politics of the NFL. Now he's going to have clearly he's going to have a U.S. resume that will probably change that for him. In other words, he gets drafted in the NFL and gets a $20 million signing bonus. His dynamic and tryout changes completely compared to Nathan.
Yeah.
So they'll actually take a look at him and actually give him reps in practice and let him go out and earn a job. So, I think there's all of those dynamics at play. Here's one thing though that I think everyone is doing, Don, is they're anointing his brother, Nathan's brother, as a better player than Nathan in the pro level. And he'll be better because of what he's doing in college. And I am not doing that. I mean, I think Nathan can lead a team to a championship. And let's see if his brother can when he makes the transition to pro football, because it's the biggest jump you make. High school, college is a big one. College to pro, much bigger. And you have to have the attitude, the right mindset, the go out and work. I'm not saying he doesn't have all of those things, but I'm not anointing him better than Nathan until I see it.
Fair enough. Now, Bo Levi Mitchell leading the CFL with 4,359 yards passing. That's like around 800, more than Zach Collaros, who's in second place. Did anybody see this coming, that Bo Levi Mitchell was just going to rip the league apart like he used to when he was much younger?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot of concern about his age and, where he is in his career and whether or not he had 1 foot into football and 1 foot kind of out already. And because that never works. That was all concerns going in. But I think what we did is we became sort of a victim of the 0-4 start. We looked at that, I think, from the outside looking in and saying he's done because the team is struggling. And when I watched him, I saw a guy, and if we went back to Sports Cages at that time, you'd probably hear a clip from me saying, I still see a Bo that can make all those throws with the flick of the wrist like he always could. I think he's back from where he was when he was in Calgary winning games. So I thought physically he was there. But remember, when they were 0-4, Tim White was dropping key first down passes every time he got his hands on the ball. They would fumble for a touchdown at the wrong time in a one possession game. They lost games like that. So I'm not surprised. And Bo Levi Mitchell right now is probably a front runner for MOP in the league.
Oh, definitely. One last question, if I could, Glenn. Of course, the Roughriders playing in Edmonton on Saturday. Are you doing that game?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I got another back-to-back, but it's not a 1 o'clock kickoff, so it won't be the same panic.
Well, anyway, if you're looking at that game in Winnipeg with the Elks, the blowout for the Bombers, and after that, I'm wondering, okay, who are the Edmonton Elks? Are they going back to earlier in this season? Or was it just a bad game, or what's going on? Because they were dismal. I mean, either that or Winnipeg is just going to slaughter everybody. I don't know which of the two, but they looked so dismal, the Elks. What do you think happened, and what do you think is going to happen Saturday in Edmonton?
Well, I'll give you an example of without going into sort of a personal attack or attacks on any of the staff or anything like that. When you're a player in the locker room, everyone knows that you're the guy that probably should be starting. So if you've earned, well, at any position really, but if you're in the locker room in any position, and you have played great in 3 games in a row or 4 games, or you have been the leader in that position, and throughout practice and training camp you were the best player there. And, all of those things, everybody knows that in the room. And so if that doesn't happen and you get pulled for someone else, it gets everyone questioning the process. So if, last year the Elks started 0-7 and Trey Ford never got a chance to play. Then they finally put him in a game and he made the second, not him by himself, but he led the team in the second half of the season to a respectable second half of the year and probably saved some jobs. Now, what did that earn him the next year? Nothing. He was tattooed to the bench as this team started 0-5. And then they start 0-5 and they finally throw him in. And what does he do? He leads the team to 2 straight wins. Then he gets hurt. And when he comes back, he has a bad quarter or two and he gets pulled. And then the very next week, he doesn't even get to start again. So I just think there's probably more of a dynamic going on of other players looking at that going, well, wait, I could have 22 tackles as a linebacker and I might not play the next day. Like that's going to be a problem in the locker room.
Right. Confusion in the locker room. Glenn, you're outstanding.
How do I earn the right to be a starter? I thought by my play, I could earn the right to be a starter. So I don't know. I think that's one of Edmonton's issues.
Oh, that's a great point. Well, you get a 10 out of 10 once again for your opinions on Sportscage, Glenn. Thanks for joining us. Sportscage continues in just a moment.
The all-new Sportscage is brought to you by Busy Bee Doors. Busy Bee will repair or replace your residential or commercial garage doors so you don't get stuck in or out. Catch the buzz. Busy Bee Doors, the garage door specialists.
This is Country Gold with Steve Harmon, your home for the country hits of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Hello, I'm Steve Harmon, inviting you to join me for Country Gold. Each week we play country favorites from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and we check in with the stars who made them, too. This weekend on Country Gold.
Country Gold, brought to you by Trent Dickin and his experienced team at Flooring Superstore. Saturday mornings at 6 and Sunday afternoons at 4 on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM.
Hey, Rider Nation, this is Dave Thomas, voice of your Saskatchewan Roughriders. Listen to this. How does a 50-50 payday sound? Sounds like a win to me. Huddle up to riders5050.ca and you can purchase 50-50 tickets for every Rider game, home or away. You can even score quickly with the early bird prize. This week, it's a road trip to Edmonton to see the Oilers, and you'll be in for the massive weekly jackpots. Buy now at riders5050.ca and support amateur football in Saskatchewan. Sponsored by ISC. License LR 2426.
On the farm, dirt doesn't just get under your fingernails. It runs through your veins. Your equipment is just as tough. You bought it for its rugged dependability and efficient operation. To keep your machinery running as good as the day you bought it, you want genuine AGCO parts, fluids, and filters from Nick Service. Their friendly parts staff has what your equipment needs to keep it running at the top of its game. Keep it genuine at Nick Service, your local genuine AGCO parts headquarters.
Sask Power is working to improve the power system in your area. In order to do their work safely, they need to shut the power off for rural customers in Regina Beach, west of 3rd Street West past 6th Street West, and north of Osborne Avenue, from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. tomorrow, October 2nd, weather permitting. Again, the power will be out for 2 hours tomorrow, from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. for rural customers in Regina Beach. For updates on this outage, visit saskpower.com/outages.
Get it hot and get it fast. Western Pizza.
Some will try to tell you 8 inches is enough. Others will say 10 inches will do. But when you want a lot of pizza, you gotta hanker down with a delicious 13-inch pepperoni from Western Pizza. Why mess with a good thing? You know what you want. 13 inches of pepperoni pizza perfection from Western Pizza. Western Pizza. Big on toppings, big on taste. Dine in or take out. Order today.
And get it hot and get it fast. Western Pizza.
Welcome, one and all, to the greatest auto sale at Capital GMC. Prepare to be amazed by our weekly Ringmaster specials. Early year-end clearance prices that can be found nowhere else in the world. Gaze at the amazing cash for clunkers. Get a minimum $3,000 for your trade, guaranteed. Bring the entire family for food, games, and your shot at winning thousands in spectacular prizes. Hurry, hurry, Hey, hurry! It's the greatest auto sale at Capital GMC.
The all-new Sports Cage is live streaming from our Century Studios in downtown Regina. Watch now at sportscage.com. Be part of the show by texting 306-936-6262. 620 CKRM.
And it's Don Hewitt back with the all-new Sports Cage. And don't forget, Sports Cage is proud to be the voice of amateur football in Saskatchewan every Friday at 4:30. Listen for Friday Night Lights, a complete rundown of all high school football action. Friday Night Lights is brought to you by Regina Motor Products. Let us know about the big game this weekend. Send us an email, if you can, to hi, that's right, hi, at sportscage.com. Keith Willoughby of the U of S Edwards School of Business now joins me on the cage. Keith, as you know, is our CFL and Rough Rider analytics guru. You are now being called a guru, Keith, because you were a big hit on social media last week after your performance on Sports Cage. Some tweets hit 4,500 people, reading your analysis and your analytics. That's got to make you feel pretty good that many people are finding this interesting, Keith.
I would hope so. Thanks, Don. I appreciate the kind words. It's for somebody who's made their living teaching stats classes where students approach the classes with a blend of fear and loathing. It's nice that people have a bit of an appeal to the analytics. It also, I guess, it does help when it's showing an uptick for the Riders in terms of their possibilities from the computer models perspective for the rest of the season and into the playoffs.
Well, speaking of this uptick, let's go to some boards. Video boards that we can talk about with your results of this week with your analytics. Board number 1, Riders projected to finish second at 9-8-1. You see it on your screen. Now, Keith, has this got lots to do with how BC and Edmonton played their last game?
Exactly, and you think even prior to this last week's action, so heading into our game against Ottawa, the Riders were actually projected to finish third behind BC, but Saskatchewan had their second win in a row, were able to pull off a 13-point victory at home against Ottawa. Mm-hmm. BC played dead for the entire second half against Hamilton and made Bo Levi Mitchell look like a second coming of Dieter Brock. And lo and behold, the Bombers, the Ticats end up beating BC in overtime, and that's really flipped the script from a computer model's perspective now. So it's basically downgrading the lines a little bit and now giving a lot of love to the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Well, we were just talking to Glenn Suter about Nathan Rourke. He thinks he'll come back, but the ball's sailing on him. It's, over heads and very difficult high catches. And it's weird that this is happening to him after how spectacular he was the first time he played in the CFL.
And I hope as a Rider fan that he doesn't discover the magic during the Obsidian Green game on October the 12th.
Right.
Because obviously that's our next home game hosting the Lions. But they seem to be a different club. Early in the season, under Vernon Adams Jr., they were moving the ball with some authority. They beat the Riders by 15 points at home in July when BC played Saskatchewan. But it seems that they've really stubbed their toe over the last month and a half, almost like the Riders who went through that tailspin. I will point out what I find different between BC and Saskatchewan is Saskatchewan lost excruciatingly close games in some painful fashions.
Yes.
The Lions, yes, they were competitive against Hamilton and they lost in overtime, but they've been in some games soundly beaten. So we'll see what happens the rest of the season, but it's definitely flipped the script from the computer model's perspective, looking ahead for the last 3 regular season games for both teams.
I don't know if you heard Glenn Suter at the tail end of his segment or not, Keith, but he was saying that, the quarterback situation in Edmonton might not be a good scenario for their locker room with the two quarterbacks, Bethel Thompson and Ford, and how they're going back and forth and who's our leader, etc. I suppose it could be the same thing in BC. You just mentioned how well they did. Most of the games Vernon Adams started, and now Rourke's in there. Who's the leader, sort of situation. I mean, I wonder if that's rippling through the BC dressing room, like Glenn's suggesting it might be rippling through the Elks dressing room.
It's a great point, Don. You think early in the season, VA, in my mind, was a leading candidate for the MOP. He was moving the ball with authority, running the ball when needed, passing the ball with precision. I've often heard the phrase in football, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. I know that you need a strong backup, because we've seen it this year when Harris was down and Shea Patterson came in for 6 or 7 games. But to me, once you get that, again, I'm not a locker room expert. I haven't been inside the locker room to see how the team is doing. But you think that once that sort of weaves its way through the locker room, then do you get different camps of people? Do you get different perspectives emerging? Does it really impact the psyche of the team? I think back to the Riders' history, and Don, you remember the 1989 season when the Riders won their second Grey Cup. We had the luxury of Kent Austin and Tom Burgess, who did, I think, a really good job at sort of sharing the limelight of being a quarterback.
Yes.
When teams can't do that, then I think that's when you end up with some really dangerous territory, and then where teams can't really emerge successfully.
And they did it in '89, but the next year, of course, Tom Burgess got traded to Winnipeg and won the Grey Cup. So maybe it can't last too long. Let's go to board number 2, Curtis, if we can. Saskatchewan hosting, there it is. Oh, he was ahead of me. I'm sorry, Curtis. Hosting BC in the semifinal. And if this happens, and it's an incredible, incredible sort of situation to think about after a 7-game winless streak. It could be, for all we know, a cold day on November 2nd, Keith. And if it is nice and cold and they come in from Lotus Land in BC and aren't used to it, I mean, if this happens, you really have to think that the Riders would have a legitimate shot at the Western Final.
I would think so, because anytime you get into the playoffs, you know you're into a 1-game tournament where it's win in advance, win it or lose and go home. But as a Rider fan, I'd much rather have the opportunity of hosting the Western semifinal. For me, Don, and maybe this is a bit of good thoughts on my perspective, I have not seen a Rough Rider home playoff victory since the 2013 Grey Cup. I missed the game in 2021 because of a work obligation. And then, of course, we lost the home playoff games in 2018 and 2019. So this would be a great opportunity of getting the lines on our turf early November. If we think it for this rest of the season, Don, to me, it really comes down to the October 12th game. In my mind, if I take the computer out of it, whoever wins that game on October 12th, I think has the real pole position in terms of being able to host the West semifinal.
Right, and we all know that BC folk are soft when it comes to cold weather. We're much more hardier on the prairies, Keith. Okay, we'll go to the next board. The computer loves the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Well, yeah, no kidding. 70% probability of reaching the Grey Cup. That would be Winnipeg's 5th straight if it happens. The Tom Wilkinson / Warren Mood led Eskimos, the last team that pulled off that and more. In fact, they went to 6 straight, won the last 5. But it looks right now that particularly the Bomber defense, Keith, is really peaking.
They are. And I know each Monday morning when I get ready and run the computer model, it always causes me, being a Rider fan, a bit of pain and anxiety seeing how much the computer loves the blue and gold. But I tip my cap to the Bombers. They took down a very strong Elks team who was on quite a surge, and they beat them handily in Commonwealth, and then really toppled them in the home game in Winnipeg. Much as I hate to admit it, if I put on my Rider jersey, my Rider glasses, the road to the Grey Cup heads through Manitoba. So like it or not, we're going to have to get through Winnipeg somehow, and that's why the computer loves them. 70% chance of winning the Grey Cup, which is abnormally high for the computer's projections, especially at this part of the season.
Yeah, and stopping Brady Oliveira in cold weather, very difficult. And you look what's going on, in Winnipeg. Outside of their stadium is a statue of Grant. You got to wonder, Keith, by the time it's all over, whether there'll be a statue right beside Bud of Mike O'Shea, really. He's a phenomenal coach. That's all you can say about him.
Yeah, and I recall, again, being a fan of the CFL, watching him play. Again, a career that he enjoyed, primarily with Toronto Argonauts, but also with other CFL teams. He aggravates me being a Rider fan. He seems to get it. The lion's share of calls go his way. He has the ability to really promote his case with the CFL officials. But if I look at it just objectively as just a fan of football, for the Bombers to have gone to the number of Grey Cups in a row and to have won the games they did, they are. I tip my cap. They're a phenomenal franchise for being able to seal the deal when it matters most.
And they just don't beat themselves. That's why Corey Mace was talking to Deontay Williams. We don't do that sort of thing here, and that's the sort of thing Corey Mace is trying to bring to Saskatchewan. The next board, the computer making the Eskimos 1-point favorites Saturday in Edmonton. Well, what are the main reasons, what are the main reasons for that, Keith? I mean, obviously one of them is, this is a bigger game in reality for the Elks than it is for the Roughriders. You could argue,
it is. If I look at it as, again, not that any CFL team would ever want to treat a game as being irrelevant, but for the Riders, if they win their 2 home games, they will host a West semifinal in October. The West semifinal in November. But for this upcoming game, I think the model's picking up a couple things. Number one, given that they're a 1-point favorite, then they are pretty close already. So it's predicting a pretty tight game. Edmonton was on a huge surge up until they ran into the buzzsaw known as the Bombers, which has sort of really derailed them. And let's not forget that it was 2 short months ago when the Elks came into Mosaic and they ran down the throats of the Green and White. So hopefully there's a way for the Green and White now to level the playing field, so to speak, and to get victorious, because there is still an outside chance the Riders could host the West Final, but it would mean, of course, Saskatchewan running the table and hoping the Bombers can stub their toe.
Well, of course, any team that takes their foot off the gas pedal is looking for big trouble. So I think the Riders will be ready to clinch a playoff spot in Edmonton Saturday. Like I said, any lack of 100% intensity and you're packing your bags and heading home. So the Riders on the next board, 99% chance of making the playoffs. In other words, 99%, they're making the playoffs. You'd think 78% chance of hosting a playoff game, which looks pretty good, a 10% chance of making the playoffs. So when you take a look at 78% chance of hosting a playoff game, is this partly because right now Trevor Harris is outplaying Nathan Rourke?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the surge we've seen in the Riders over the last 2 games. And let's not forget, Don, that even in the games that we lost, when we went through that tailspin, the Riders were competitive. And I think given that the model is looking at margin of victory, it's recognizing the fact that the Riders were competitive in all of their games. If I look back in the season, to me, it's really the home game against Edmonton and the road game in BC are the 2 games where probably they were really outmanned. But the other games we've had, the other 13 games, they've either won, tied, or been very close with margin of loss.
Earlier in the show, I read off the Rider 6-game injury list. It took me half an hour. And that long list of players, I think it's going to be up to 19 perhaps. That long list of players, I'm looking at it, and I didn't see one player who I didn't think was a pretty good football player, and Frankie Hickson and Brian Cox Jr. on the 1-game list to top it all off, so they're getting up to 20 here. And I couldn't help but think what a great job the coaching staff has done with Corey Mace with all these injuries as compared to the coaching staff of the last 2 previous seasons who just fell apart with the injuries.
Well said, Don. And I look at to me, there's really 2 positions that I've seen where the Riders have done an exceptional job of regrouping when they've had injuries. Number one is the offensive line, and all Rider fans know that we've gone through probably 13 or 14 O-linemen this year.
You're right.
And the other is Canadian receiver. And Mitch Picton, again, injured. Jojo, injured. Keon Schaefer-Baker, again, was dinged up in the Ottawa game.
Yeah.
But you look at the people who've emerged. Colton Hunchak, who was playing receiver, and he's been here for a couple of days. Dale Duncan Busby, who's the one of the Riders' leading receivers in the Saturday game, has a rookie, a mid-round draft pick this year. We've been able to have players emerge and contribute to the team. I think that's helped to really get us through this turbulence because I felt as a Rider fan, losing some of our Canadian receivers has been especially impactful. And of course, with the offensive line, if you have no good O-line, the quarterback has no time and you can't run the ball.
Right, and real, hats off to Edwin Harrison, the Rough Riders offensive line coach, who's done such a great job. And I just think he's one of the best offensive line coaches that I've ever seen since Bob Wiley was here, and I think that was 2009. He's been so good. And Hunchak was hilarious because he comes in out of the blue because of the dire straits that Jeremy O'Day was in. He's wearing, against that Ottawa game, if you noticed it, like sort of a long-sleeved, thick sweatshirt. He was trying to, try to sweat it out, and maybe he thought he'd get in shape faster, but he clearly wasn't in shape if you followed his routes. And on the one that looked like Trevor Harris missed him down in the deep corner of the sideline. But the reality is, Trevor Harris threw a perfect football. Hunchak, not being in shape, no fault of his, by the way. And, he just couldn't get there. So, it was a great effort anyway. Now, the Riders, if you take a look at, well, my goodness, they're in second place. But they're number 3 in net offense right now in the CFL. On the other side of the ledger, they've given up the third least yards of net offense. So they're sort of number 3 on either side of it. And you're thinking, a team that's 3-3 in those two categories for net offense gained and net offense allowed, they sort of deserve to be, weirdly enough, because of all the close losses, they sort of deserve to be in second place in that respect.
I'd agree, Don, and I think another stat to look at is their ability to create turnovers, and we saw a good example in Saturday's game with the interceptions from Milligan, from Sales, and Eau Claire, and our ability as an offense to not turn over the ball to the opposition. So we've won the turnover battle throughout the season. I think that's really helped the Riders to be competitive when we've lost those close games, but also then to emerge victorious, especially over the last 2 weeks. Now we're back to a 500 record.
A lot of people thought at times during the offseason, well, Trevor Harris is coming off a serious injury. He's 38 years old. Does he still have it? Will he get hurt again? But you go back to that fourth quarter when Harris led that march for the touchdown, and it was so flawless. He was so confident and calm. And I said to myself, this is why they brought Trevor Harris is. The critics can sort of have to stand aside at the moment because that was one of the most meticulous and well thought out drives. And also credit to Mark Mueller, who was calling the plays. And I might add, the Calgary Stampeder offense has not been as good this season without Mark Mueller. Do you think there's any correlation there?
Well, I've in the past 20 years, I've never seen the Stampeders have this level of mediocrity. And again, not that I'm trying to celebrate another team's failure, but as a Rider fan, typically I've looked up to the Stampeders in the standings. Again, this year without Mueller's impact, you see the changes happen in Calgary. The one thing, Don, that really struck me in Saturday's game was after Armstead goes down with the injury, the Riders are running Thomas Bertrand-Hudon as the running back. And you could sort of feel that Ottawa's not really respecting our running game, and we've got new receivers in there. But the Riders were still able to move the ball. Bertrand-Hudon had several big runs, including the touchdown run. Harris was able to make those throws either to Keyshawn Johnson or to Duncan Busby. And I think that, to me, really shows, I think, the level of professionalism within the team. And not that I want to draw too many parallels to 1989, but I tell you, in 1989, we had players like Rob Bresciani and Jeff Bentram, who were our leading receivers in games, who were either a journeyman slot back or our backup quarterback. And I think that's where Rider fans can take some comfort recognizing that, let's put on our seatbelts and see what happens for October. because we know we're going to be somewhere in the playoffs in November, and hopefully it will have us run through a route to the Grey Cup.
Right, and Rob Bresciani's wife, Keith, is running for mayor in Regina. See if her October's okay. Now, Bertrand Hudon, he doesn't get a lot of chances. He had a couple of good runs, particularly, of course, the one where he scored the touchdown. He made a great little deke on a would-be tackler. And I thought how hard he has worked, the hours in a gym, the determination. He won't give up. I mean, he was wearing a Guardian cap to try to protect himself because he's, had the odd ding to the head. And I thought all that work, all that toil, and it paid off for him. It was such a glorious moment for him. And I can't imagine whether he's got a wife or girlfriend, but his parents, his siblings, after all of that, it was his moment to shine.
That was really special to see. And I think of somebody, our season tickets are right behind the Rider bench. And so we watch the players, and Bertrand Hudon has been somebody, he's played all of the special teams this season. So he's out there, maybe in a typical game, if Hickson or Armstead are running the ball, he is out there, again, going maybe 8-10 plays per quarter and getting his bell rung basically in some high-impact plays. But now he gets the chance to be in the offense, and we see the celebration that occurred when he crossed the goal line. So that was really nice to see from Thomas's perspective, somebody who's really tried hard all season and emerging successful, but also, to me, it showed now that we've got some extra weapons along the offensive scheme that we can deploy successfully in October.
Right, and you were talking about the unsung heroes in '89, and maybe we're starting to see some development, as you were mentioning some of the names of some unsung heroes in Saskatchewan. I mean, maybe we're getting carried away here, but the only thing I know is I knew the Riders were going to win that game halfway through the fourth quarter, whereas during that 7-game winless streak, I didn't know. But I sort of knew on Saturday they were going to win.
I'll agree with you to a certain point, Don, but I tell you, as a Rider fan, it was getting nervous in the second and third quarter when we got the interceptions. Mario Alford had the big missed field goal return.
Right,
we were kicking field goals, which was good, but the nervous part of me was saying all Ottawa needs is one big play, and they're back in the game. Luckily, the defense held Ottawa without those big plays until late in the game when they got a touchdown. But again, tip the cap to the Riders for the ability to really get a 13-point win, which was it's just really nice to see, especially at this part of the season.
Right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Keith. We enjoyed it as usual. You have a very good weekend. On behalf of the technical directors of Sportscage, Colson Schultz and Curtis Gammon, I want to remind you that tomorrow Barney Shinkarek will have doubles on Darian Durant on the Sportscage, so that's something to look forward to. And maybe he'll talk to Darian about what's going on with Nathan Rourke's throwing motion. That's it for Sportscage. Have a good evening, everybody.
Dear, it's time to replace your tires. Your performance tires.
What? I don't need performance tires. That's some macho thing.
Well, actually, you have them now.
I do?
Yeah, that's what makes your car feel so safe.
Safe? Well, I do like the way my car drives.
Right? You want them to turn and stop when needed, and Toyo produces performance tires that improve your vehicle's ride.
Toyo tires, huh? Let's do it.
Toyo tires, available at all 9 Quality Tire locations in Saskatchewan. QualityTire.ca.
Not once, not twice. We give it the full triple check treatment. At eBarassa & Sons, we triple check inspect your New Holland equipment, saving your Barassa time and money. 1-year parts and labor warranty on installed CNH parts and 10% off when you spend over $10,000. You bet your sweet Barassa. We take good care of your equipment at eBarassa & Sons. Book before November 29th at ebarassa.com. eBarassa & Sons. When it's in the bin, bring it in.
Regina Pats hockey is back, and that net is